Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if Isai become a villain in High School DxD Part 2, Chapter 5. Reality check. Previously, we saw 2 Bio and the rest of Team /Dog discuss on the current situation, with Azazel trying to check any weakness, but slamming, he is unable to get any weakness. Furthermore, the team discusses on what happens next as Isai refuses to help him, leaving them with no choice to hand over next to Isai. This continues as they never considered Isai's feelings before, as they discuss on what they need to do next. As for Isai, he reunites with Malik and gives them the promised army that he so needed. He looked around in awe and fully accepted the army. As Isai heads to deal with Elizabeth, he easily infiltrates in the heaven, eliminating and knocking out all of the brave saints, and focuses on Gabriel as he mocks her for her weakness. He is ambushed by Elizabeth. The woman tries to fight against Isai, but he easily overwhelms her. Elizabeth was at her knees, as she is then corrupted by the holy nail. Once Isai enters inside, he shows her the truth. As the memory and personality overriding was done, she becomes an ally of Issei, as Issei instructs her to look for the other holy relics, and what they do as they have the potential to become relics, with Elizabeth agreeing to do so. He then gives her the gem that allows her to transform into the first archangel. She then sees Isai leave as she looks at Gabriel with disgust as she begins her task. As this was going on, Grigori was under a full assault as Malik and his forces were tearing them apart. Scores of B1, B2 and commando droids were laying waste to the population as Penamid decided to join the fight to save her kind. However, it was too late, as a general showed up, who was called Grievous. He destroyed Penema without much effort as the fallen cadre fell. They then proceed to tear apart Grigori. Meanwhile, as this was going on, Malik was tearing apart the remaining forces with his own army. He confronts Baraquiland after bringing him to his knees. He sucks out his life force as he leaves him for dead. Though Bio was the next to confront him as he was surrounded by many people. He manages to seem to subdue him as he was on his knees. However, unbeknownst to them, Malik was only pretending as several bombs were unleashed, killing several thousands including Koki Samajima. As 2 people died and many were injured, the doctors took the injured back. Meanwhile, Malik and the others teleported back to the hidden base where they were greeted by General Kalani, who deduced that they had the highest chance of winning. Isai watches this with a cold smile, with him continuing the next phase of his plan, and that was to go after Gondola and Artemis. While this was going on, Elizabeth takes information from the 6th heaven, with Gabriel watching with despair. Had I read Issei's heart, none of this would have happened, Gabriel murmured with tears falling from her eyes. She never read Issei's heart, and believed Dai and Ria's completely. She remembered on how her first encounter with Maliki went. Scene change, flashback. The whole 6th heaven was burning as many of the angels had been killed. Most of them were low-class angels. Gabriel was already at her knees as an intimidating figure was looming on her. His red blade and yellow eyes made her immensely fear him. Her powers were of no match, as any holy light attack she aimed at him were easily deflected and blocked by him. She realized that she might die here tonight by his hands, as he had mercilessly killed anyone that stood in his way. However, his intentions were not to kill her, so he used his telekinesis to give her traumatic memories relating to what a certain chestnut had to go through. She held her head in pain, shouting, "Please, make it stop. I beg you," Gabriel shouted in despair, but she felt no sympathy from the man in front of her as he looked at her in an apathetic manner. Gabriel eventually passed out due to the trauma as the man looked at her and spoke. "I believe he would love to see you in this state." The man spoke in a cold tone as he lifted her up and took her to his hideout. Once they're each there, Gabriel wakes up to see the same man in front of her. She tries to read his heart, but she could only find nothing but emptiness inside of it. He seemed to be completely devoid of emotion. She has a look of concern that was seen on the man's face. "Welcome to my humble abode. My name is Malik. It is not a pleasure to meet you," Malik spoke with a mocking tone. Gabriel tried to get up, but she was unable to. She looked around to see several chains sealing away her magic. She was helpless in front of the man. She feared what he would do to her, and a number of scenarios were running through her mind as she was thinking. Malik decided to speak. "I have heard from an old friend that you are considered the most beautiful lady on heaven. if not one of the most beautiful lady in the entirety of the supernatural. Malak spoke with a mocking tone as he then became serious. But then again, your actions tell me a whole different story. They show me a different side, an ugly one. Who exactly are you? And I don't understand what are you talking about. Gabriel's voice was filled with innocence, to which Malak shook his head and spoke coldly. Oh Gabriel, sweet Gabriel, you are so naive, Malak then continued in the same tone, yet you failed to see the horrors of this world that I and my old friend have witnessed, and how people like you play God. I don't understand, all we did is help people. Gabriel retorted as her face showed pure anger. However, Malak wagged his finger and responded. Yet you failed to see the injustice happening in your own organization. Malak spoke with a cold voice, which soon changed to disgust. My old friend told me about several crimes that your popes and Vatican commit, the Holy Sword Project, the rapes of women by your own people to name, a few all in the name of your beloved God. Malaki ended with a mocking tone. Gabriel was quiet. He was not wrong. Even after the perpetrators were excommunicated, the damage was done, and the worst part is that their own people did this for a very long time. And that's not even the worst crime that you commit. There was one that you failed to see right in front of your eyes. Malak spoke in a cold tone, with Gabriel retorting, that has never happened. We have never ignored any crime. We have never hurt anyone innocent. Gabriel retorted as Malak raised his tone in response. You lie. Malak shouted, making Gabriel flinch. Stop lying about the suffering you have caused to other people and pretending to be the good guys. History has shown that even God had made mistakes and has flaws. Nobody is perfect. And yet you act as such. It is time to end this. Malak shouted as he raised his hand. Wait, we can talk about this, please, like civilized people. Gabriel spoke with fear in her voice, sensing that this was the same technique he used earlier, to which Malak angrily retorted, No. People like you have fooled us for long. And it is time I make you see your mistakes by force. Gabriel screamed in pain, however, soon after the screams dulled away, as she started to remain in disbelief, as tears started to stem from her eyes. However, an additional emotion started to brew in her eyes, and that was hatred belonging to a certain person that she once loved. This is not true, tell me this is a lie. Gabriel spoke with tears in her eyes. She was in disbelief that he would do all this. Do you think this is a joke? Why would we lie to you? After all, this is his memories. Malak spoke with fury in his voice. He then calms down as he speaks. You know what, I will let him talk to you. Malak turned to his side. As she watches someone approach him, he shows his face from the shadows as Gabriel's look changes into horror. No. It can't be. You are the one that initiated the assault. Gabriel spoke with disbelief as the one standing in front of her was none other than Isai. Gabriel spoke with disbelief as the one standing in front of her was none other than Isai. Long time no see, Seraph Gabriel. I pity that you are in this condition. Isai spoke with a sad tone before changing it into mocking smile, and he started walking close to her and crouched. So how does it feel to know of my brother's true identity? Asiel exclaimed while pulling her chin and face close to his while exclaiming, It hurts, doesn't it, that the one you loved is a piece of shit. Everything is a lie. It has to be a lie. Please tell me it is. Gabriel spoke with desperation as Asiel only smiled innocently and spoke in a mocking tone. Oh, sweet Gabriel, naive Gabriel, Isai spoke before changing into a serious tone. Nothing was a lie. You know it well. If anything, these memories that Malak gave you were mine. Your ability was created so that you would not be deceived by such lies. Isai ended with a mocking tone. It was ironic to see her being deceived by such lies done by her own brother and Riaz herself. No, that's not true. Gabriel shouted. Dai was her first love, and she did not want to be deceived by him. However, she broke down into tears when she realized that the memories were not lies. Now I will show you your biggest mistake, and that is I will make sure that the factions fall, Isai declared, as Gabriel tried her best to get up. Then I will do what I must. Gabriel spoke sadly with tears in her eyes. I will stop you from destroying the lives of the innocents. That's a shame. You have turned your back on me, and I will destroy everything you have created. Isai spoke with a cold tone that was ice cold. It was probably the coldest tone she has ever heard him speak to her, or that was whenever he could. I have to stop you, I must, otherwise you will destroy this piece, and I can't let you do that. I am sorry, Gabriel spoke while struggling from the chains. And why should I not do that? You have already destroyed my life, Aseel spoke, and then he released her and started to use his telekinesis to choke her. It's a shame that you need to be silenced. As he used a telekinesis spell called Insanity, which he developed by using his own memories of mistreatment of the past. Essie, please, we can talk about this. Let me help you. There is still good left in you. Gabriel spoke sadly while struggling to breathe. Tears were falling from her eyes. You can still be a hero. I am sorry, but the hero you once knew is dead. Killed by the very people he once protected slowly and painfully. Issei spoke, as he then continued, but don't worry, I don't intend to kill you. Essie spoke while charging his telekinetic spell. I intend to make you suffer since killing you would be mercy. I want to see you suffer the consequences of your mistakes. Your mistake of trusting and loving the wrong person, Essie spoke, while sending the spell Insanity inside of her mind, which would trigger whenever she would speak about the incident with Isai. You won't say a thing, I give you my word, and if you die, oh well, Isai spoke while shrugging. I pray for your survival, Issei spoke feigning pity. Nah, just kidding. I pray for your suffering. Lady Gabriel Issei ended with a mocking tone as the two men left from there, leaving Gabriel crying endlessly due to the betrayal she had received from Dai Hayato. Flashback ends, scene change. I am so sorry. This wouldn't have happened if I used my ability on Issei a long time ago, Gabriel muttered while a tear fell from her eye. However, unbeknownst to her, Elizabeth was almost done taking all the information needed for Issei's sacred gear recreation, since it would not only help him in creating Longinus gears based on the other holy relics, but he will be finally able to recreate the true Longinus. Elizabeth turned her attention to Gabriel and gave her a cold look as she spoke. Don't forget that all of this is due to the actions of naive people like you. Elizabeth spoke with a smile, hiding her disgust as her eyes returned to normal baby blue from the former purple it was, implying that her transformation as a dark angel was completed. After this, the world will be a much better place. Elizabeth had the same smile before leaving heaven to inform this to Isai. 4 days later, Idu residence, 12:30 p.m. Valerie Lucifer can be seen with tears in her eyes. She remembered what had happened. She had already lost Lavinia, and now Kulki is gone as well. She did not know of this as the doctors or her friends decided to not tell her as she was recovering from her wounds. The wounds became severe due to the fact she woke up in spite on Invol. The doctors had warned her before that if she were to move, she would not recover and put her in an anesthesia-induced coma to make her recover faster, as the Dragon Slayer magic that Isai had infused in his punches had still remained. The anesthesia was so that she wouldn't feel the pain. The magic was eventually removed, and she was able to recover. She headed back once the surgery was done, and she was able to walk. Tell me, this is not true, Kuroka. Valerie spoke with sadness as tears fell from her eyes. First, Lavinia and Kochi, please tell me that Kochi is alright. Valerie's voice was higher. She refused to believe that Kochi is dead. I am sorry, Vali. Kuroka spoke with sadness. She did not have the verbal tick, Naya with her. Vali's hair covered her face. She then ran away as Kuroka exclaimed in worry, Vali, wait. Kuroka shouted with her running behind him. Many were worried about Vali as they were helpless in this situation. However, Valerie was too fast leaving Kuroka in the house. She could only watch her leave. It did not help that Barakriol also died shortly after Malik drained his life energy, and unlike Lavinia, who was alive, but in a comatose situation, similarly due to the attack, others like Zahariel and Ambrose had to be induced into a coma to recover their wounds. All in all, things were pretty bleak for Grigori, that is if they somehow managed to recover. The attack wiped out more than 50% of the fallen angels. There was no trace of them, and amongst the injured, 40% succumbed to their wounds, and out of the remaining 60%, 50% of them have a low recovery chance, and among them is the Cadre Peninu. The wounds inflicted by Grievous were too much. And that's not even mentioning that fallen angels' numbers were constantly being among the least in the Great War, not to mention, many of the top-level fallen angels left for the Cow's Brigade when they were found leaking secrets to them, and then the evil Dragon War happened, which took casualties from all factions. Fallen angels were no exception. Thus, this resulted them in having the lowest population among the three factions, and unlike devils, who have the evil peace system, and the angels have the brave saints, fallen angels don't have that. The reason was that their former leader Azazel did not intend to continue the race. According to him, he did want the race to end with him despite accepting any that intend to join their race. Ironically, his wish did take place in one of the worst ways he could have possibly imagined. As this was going on, Invol, who had left her room, had approached downstairs. She had heard of the news of what happened to Grigori, and was saddened. However, that was 3 days ago. Now she wondered why everyone was gathered here. Did something happen? Invol asked with concern, wondering what had happened. A part of her was happy that I was not present. She often wondered where Issei was though. Not that he would tell her where she is. No, it's just Valerie came back. She did not take the news too well. Riaz spoke. As she looked at situation, it was grim. Riaz was the first to come to know of the situation, and she had reported it to the rest. Many had kept their hands on their mouths in horror. They were horrified that Dragori had fallen, and many were killed. The one who did not react was Aquino, which surprised many. Her father had died, the only parent in her life is gone, and now she was alone, except for her friends. That is, she was robotic and always remained in a catatonic state, not moving much, only just being in her own world. Malik's hallucinations plus Barakriel's death left her in a terrible state. Aside from that, several others had to be also put in a comatose state, and for Vali, they hoped she will be alright. Even Invol was not expecting this to happen. She was saddened that this had to happen. The worst part was Malik was not alone. A whole army was with him. As a result, the other factions deduced Malik to be a part of this faction and assumed him to be their leader. They called it a droid faction. Damn it, we were confident that Malik wouldn't attack in the next few months. But it turns out that he had planned the attack and destroy one of the biblical faction. Arthur exclaimed annually. As Leif consoled him, he felt powerless that not only was his leader in such a vulnerable state, but also, he can't do anything for her or try to stop Malik. What do we do now? Asia asked in a sad tone as Riaz then spoke. We should go and help the others. Your sacred gear will be useful and needed. Asia agreed in response as Kuroka had other plans. I should stay with Vale. Kuroka spoke in concern. I doubt she wants to see anyone else. In that case, even Lefay should stay with her as well. Arthur spoke in agreement to Kuroka as Lefay was confused by their action. However, as this was going on, Malik was watching the scene, but not in amusement, but in thought. It was not because he was not happy seeing them in despair. He was happy to see them suffer. However, his thoughts were something else. As he muttered, if my hunch is correct, there has to be other hybrids between humans and demons. Malik muttered with deep thought. There will be descendants of Asmodeus and Beelzebub as well, he presumed with an analytical look. He wondered whether those two might have Longinus or not. I am sorry, but I have some appointments, so I cannot join you, Invol spoke with sadness, remembering that today is the day she will be heading to meet Office in Great Red. Many had looks of sadness, but they nevertheless agreed. Malik seemed to be amused by what is going on. He then teleports away to meet up with the rest. Scene change. Unknown location, 12:30 p.m. Isai was reviewing the information that Elizabeth had brought out from the heaven and was amazed. Most of the relics were pretty good. However, 3 caught his eye, that being the Shroud of Turin, Siderium of Oviedo, and the Crown of Thorns. He barely had any information on them before, but now with the information he had received, things are getting good. This is marvelous, Isai spoke in amazement. Good job, Elizabeth, Isai exclaimed with a happy tone as he rubs her head with her smiling in response. I am glad the information you received helped you, Lord Issei, Elizabeth responded as Issei shook his head. No. This helped me more than enough, Issei responded in happiness as Issei spoke with the same tone. Not to mention, I can recreate the true long hyenas with this information. I struggled to recreate it, but now I can, along with long hyena's sacred gears that may not have been discovered by the factions, And I can only thank you for that. Elizabeth Isai spoke with a genuine smile, as Elizabeth smiled in happiness and responded with a nod. So what will you do now? And want us to do? Grievous asked, to which Isai stored the information in the crystal orb, which is a similar recording orb. I will be focusing on the gears, for now stand by until I give the order, Isai commands seriously, as both Grievous and Kalani nod, as Elizabeth asks, what do you want me to do? Elizabeth asked, as Isai responded, Elizabeth, I want you to stay with the angels. This may disgust you, but you need to make sure that when I deal with heaven, there has to be no interruptions or problems when heaven falls. All right? Asiel spoke in a serious tone as Elizabeth shook her head. No, any mission for your sake will not disgust me by any means. I shall fulfill it for your sake. Elizabeth spoke with a smile as she teleports to the angels to pretend to be one of them. Essie turned his attention to two figures in the shadows as he speaks in a neutral tone. You two will also do, as I have ordered Elizabeth, stay with your factions and act normal like you would do. Essie commanded the two in a serious tone as they responded, Yes, Lord Essie. The voices seemed to be feminine as they both teleported away to their factions as well. Isai then went to recreate the true Longinus, and then create the Longinus based on the information he had received from the Heaven faction. Scene change. The park, 1 p.m. Ingvild came to the park as she looked around to see where Office was. However, unbeknownst to her or anyone, Valerie was tracking her down. She was not having a happy look on her face, but an impatient one because she wanted to know where Office was and who Malik was really. She wanted to avenge Kaki and Lavinia. Vali, I am telling you what you will see, it will change you completely. Albion tried to show reason to Valerie, but Vali was adamant as she spoke. No. I want to see the real identity of Malik. He will pay for what he did to Lavinia and Kachi. Vali mentally exclaimed to Albion, who cut off the connection. He gave up on reasoning with Vali as he believed something horrible would happen. Vali was going to take her revenge even if it means that she would take revenge. Meanwhile, Invol was looking for Office when all of a sudden the dimensions of the park changed into that of the dimension gap as they both entered into the dimensional gap with Valerie following them trying to find the reality of Malik. We are here, Office spoken in a motionless tone. She points straight to the Great Red. A massive red western dragon with a horn on his snout and has 2 sets of wings. His overall length measures around 100 meters. This was Great Red, the once former rival of Office and a good friend of Isai's. So she is the one, right, Office? Great Red's voice boomed as Office gives a nod. Hello? Ingvild spoke with awe and had slight nervousness as Great Red looked at her for a moment before giving a neutral look to Office. I would appreciate if you don't look at him. He doesn't like when anyone stares at him. Office spoke as Ingvild apologized to Great Red. I am so sorry. As Office looked at Great Red, however, his expression did not seem pleasant to her as Great Red's voice boomed. It seems like you broke our word, Office. Great Red's voice boomed, which made Office and Ingvild confused. She took a look at her snake, which had not been activated, giving an assuring smile to Ingvild as Great Red then spoke. I sense your confusion, but it seems like someone followed you too. Well, you failed to detect it. Great Red's voice boomed, but anger emanated from his voice. Understanding this, Office looked around, sensing the person as she doesn't have a pleasant expression from her voice. Come out, Valerie. I know you are there. Office spoke with anger in her voice, which was unusual since her voice was considered to be emotionless. Office's voice echoed throughout dimension, leaving no choice. Valerie flew towards her in her balance breaker state. Great Red is not happy with your presence, and because of you, my word is broken. I never asked you to follow me. Office spoke emotionlessly, however, she was angry by her presence. I want to know who Malik is, and I will find out about him even if I have to see the past of that useless. Valerie spoke, however, she was not able to complete as 2 auras were being radiated. One belonged to Invol and the other being Great Red himself, who boomed in what seemed to be an angry yet mocking tone. Useless? This is the same guy that clapped your ass twice back to back and could kill you if we wanted to. You are an idiot if you think he is useless. Valerie seethed in fury with Office speaking. And if anyone is useless, it is you, not him. Office's words made Valerie even more angrier. He does not want to help, because no matter what happens, you refuse to learn from your mistakes. Office ended the line, making Valerie respond. Everyone knows that he is useless. I am only telling the truth. Even the factions consider him as such, Valerie responded coldly. In that case, feast your eyes on this. Great Red boomed in response as several images showed up. However, they all had one thing in common. It seemed to be that Isai was saving her from having her sacred gear being extracted courtesy of RageRevan almost a year ago. Greg, how much time we have for this to work? Isai asked from the images, as Greg responded, only 20 minutes. And if we are unable to figure out the sequence, then Valerie is done for. Greg spoke with a neutral tone while hiding his annoyance. He did not understand why is he helping her despite her attitude, and that was when he wouldn't hesitate to help them. No. Those are all lies, Valerie responded in disbelief. Anger also was present in her voice, to which Albion responded, none of them are lies. All of them are real. Every memory is real. Every single one of them is real. Every memory is real. He saved you from Euclid and RageRevan when they intended to steal your gear. I was unable to move or tell you because they managed to even seal me. Albion spoke with a neutral tone, to which Valerie widens her eyes in shock. That is not even the closest part. Here Great Red's voice boomed as a pillar of light suddenly appeared from below and engulfed the two girls before they could react. Why didn't you wait for them to recover? Office asked in a neutral tone, to which Great Red responded, it's best they see the real truth of Crom Crouch's bearer's personality by themselves. This will shatter the White Dragon completely, and I will also show them how outclassed they, along with the factions, really are. Great Red's voice boomed as they watched the pillar of light, since it was a dimension that he had personally created to show visions on what he thinks of them. Scene change. Valerie and Invol both were taken into what seemed to be a pocket dimension as the descendant of Lucifer and the descendant of Leviathan looked around, trying to look around to see what happened as they noticed Isai walking across the street. Isai. Ingvild muttered with surprise as they then noticed that two people were following him. Ingvild tried to stop him, but to her surprise he walked right past her, almost as if he was not even there. All things that have happened, nothing new did happen. Isai spoke with a bored tone. The two people that followed, Ingvild recognized them very well. They were Matsuda and Motohama, the infamous former perverted duo. You know them? Valerie asked her, as Ingvild speaks. Yeah. They are Dion's friends, and from what I have seen, they often talk with him. Ingvild spoke to Valerie, who nodded in response, and all that remains is continue with life. The girls turned their attention to Issei, who spoke as he walked ahead, only for the boys to tap Issei's shoulder. So Issei, you like the rumors we have spread about you, you little pervert? Matsuda spoke in a mocking tone, with Motohama joining in. Ingvild was shocked at this, assuming them to be good people. Matsuda, it seems like the cat ate his tongue, it seems like he is in disbelief. Motohama spoke, however. Issei remained in his position. He seemed to have sensed someone and waited for the right time to strike. Now it makes sense. Invol spoke, with Valerie asking, I don't understand, what are you talking about? Valerie asked, to which Invol looked at her and spoke, I think you are familiar with Isai's reputation in school, right? Valerie nods in response, remembering of her terrible reputation. I believe that these two spread the reputation, causing most of the students, if not all of them, to hate and look down upon him. Ingvild spoke with disgust. She was not a fool. She put 22 together, understanding that this was Dee's doing. After all, they were his friends after all. I see. Valerie nodded. But who would ask them to do this? Valerie asked. However, Ingvild was silent, as if she were to tell the truth. Valerie may not believe her. I told you to leave the house, but you don't want to listen to me. A man's voice came from the shadows as Valerie widened her eyes. Invol was wondering what Dee was doing here. Dee approached Isai with a mocking smile on his face as he came close to Isai. Isai stayed in his position, gritting his teeth. He flipped Isai around and punched him in the stomach, making him cough up saliva. He seemed to be on the ground, holding his stomach in pain. Isai glared at his brother. He gritted his teeth, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Dai then spoke with a mocking grin. Nobody thinks to even hear you out or believe you. Good guys winning is just a fantasy thought, and you are just naive. Dai spoke mockingly as Valerie was shocked at Dai's rotten nature. Damn, Valerie spoke in horror, thinking that he was a good person. Issei, however, got up, surprising Dai even further, who gritted his teeth in fury. Don't act so brave, it doesn't fit you. Dai shouted as he aimed his punch at Issei. Once he got closer, Issei blocked the punch with his left hand. What? Dai was surprised as he struggled to release himself from his clutches. Let go of me. Dai shouted. Nope, I am just tired of pretending to be weak, Issei spoke with an evil grin. It's about time I show you why I am the older brother, Issei spoke with a mocking tone. Issei proceeded to twist Dai's hand, making him yelp in pain. Both Matsuda and Motohama were shocked by this. Someone whom they assumed to be weak was overwhelming their boss. Now they were afraid. Let go of me, or you will regret it, Dai threatened to say, as Issei had an evil grin. Both the girls were shocked at this, while Valerie was heartbroken while seeing what kind of a man Dai really was. Sure, why not? Issei decided to twist it enough, and then snap. Dai shouted in pain as he looked at his broken arm, tears in his eyes. Issei had broken his arm. He then glared at Dai, Matsuda and Motohama, and spoke. You have been living a life that was never yours, Dai. I should have put you in your place a long time ago, Issei spoke with spite in his voice. He hated what his brother has become, and it was all thanks to his parents spoiling him rotten and he lying to them, and they believing him from day one since he was the youngest child. He looked at Dee, who was holding his arm in pain, gritting his teeth. As for you two, Issei turned his attention to the two boys as he held them by their necks. If you two idiots ever mess with me, you will meet a far worse fate than him. Is that clear? The boys struggled to release themselves. They nodded in fear before Issei throws them with them passing out. At this moment, she did not expect Dai to be this weak. She knew he was weaker than Issei, but it then made sense since Issei pretty much did all of the fighting and Dai only took the credit, after which flashes of memories were shown, and all this showed how Dai took the credit for everything his brother did, how his lies were corrupting the people that he talked to, no matter which world he belonged to, and how Crone mocked Dai that he will never surpass his brother. One scene in particular made her want to vomit, and this scene made her heartache. This is something you will never enjoy, Dee spoke with a perverted smile as he grins at his brother, who only watches helplessly as the medics help him cure him. Valerie watched the scenes in tears as she shouted, Tell me, Albion, you knew this, didn't you? However, Albion gave her no response. When Langvold saw the scene in sadness, remembering the critical condition Issei was in, he nearly died for her, making her cry on remembering that. The scene then changed once again, and this time, it revealed a white-haired man with Issei, along with a brown-haired woman. Valerie wiped her tears and saw the scene. She wondered who those two were for a while, but then she recognized one of them as she spoke. It can't be. Valerie spoke with a surprised tone. Persephone? Invol looked at her in surprise as she asked, Persephone? But wasn't she dead? By a Longinus user, Valerie nods as she looks at scene. If I am correct, her soul was apparently destroyed by the Longinus user. This caused Hades to despise us and see us as threats. Valerie explained, as Invol nodded while asking, But how is she alive? I don't know, but we are about to know very soon. Valerie spoke seriously as she then speaks, and I think that white-haired man is Hades. I have never seen him in human form, though Valerie spoke while thinking. They then look at the vision as Hades opens the seal as he smiles. We are here, Ice. Hades spoke with happiness. As Issei goes inside, he sees Nyx, who exclaims in happiness. Issei, you came to see me. Nyx jumped towards Issei as she hugs him. I have missed you. I missed you too, Nyx, Issei exclaims while returning the hug, as both Persephone and Hades smile at him. After splitting up, Nyx speaks. Why don't you visit me often? Nyx asked with a bit of a pout. Well, I do have commitments here and there, so I can't, Isai spoke while rubbing his head, but I promise you, I will free you from your prison. No matter what happens, I will slice down anyone that stands in my way. Isai declared, making Nyx blush. She was happy by his declaration. Even Persephone and Hades knew of his nature, to do anything for the people he cares about. See, nothing went wrong. It seems like he is in love, Persephone muttered to Hades, who chuckled in response. Indeed, he has. Hades agreed to his wife's words as Nyx then spoke, but they will try to find you. If you try to release me, I can't risk losing you. If I stay here, you will be safe. Nyx spoke in worry, and I don't mind staying here. I am strong enough to hold my own. You know I am not weak. I will destroy anyone for even laying a finger on you, Isai spoke coldly while hugging Nyx. However, none were fearful of Isai, especially those in the room, while both Invol and Valerie shivered when they heard Isai speak with this tone. You shouldn't worry, I will be here, and Nyx spoke with a smile. Besides, promise me this, I want you to stay happy even without me. With both Persephone and Hades being concerned about this, Isai shook his head in response. I refuse. I will find a way to rescue you without those factions getting in my way, Isai spoke coldly. Anyone that stands in my way will be eliminated, Isai ended coldly. The scene caused great shivers and pain to Valerie and Invol when they realized that the one that they considered the true hero will not hesitate to become their enemy. The scene once again changed with Isai, Hades and Persephone being in this. But how will you fight? You can't take them all at once. Hades spoke seriously with worry being in his voice as looked at him and summoned the magic circle. Hades recognized them as the result of Annihilation Maker, one of the sacred gears he had copied. They saw the body of someone who will be the face of their new enemy. No. Valerie spoke with disbelief. This can't be. Invol exclaimed in surprise. She remembered him. The one who was unconscious on the ground was none other than Malak. The saver moved a knife and stabbed his hand, releasing blood drops onto Malak, whose body sucked the blood into his body, absorbing it. Ice-chan, Persephone shouted in worry as she looked at his hand and help it. Isai assured her. I am fine, Persephone, just a small wound, and besides I am going to need someone to be the face of this new enemy. Isai spoke with a smile as his wounds healed himself with a copy of Twilight Healing, his foster sister's sacred gear. As he looked at Malaki, he was a clone of the original. As the clone woke up, he looked at his original and stood beside Essie. This cannot be true, Invol screamed, unable to believe what she just saw. Even Valerie refused to believe what she just saw. The enemy was the same person that had helped them in the past, once upon a time, all with the goal of freeing Nyx. But little do they know that it was not even close to what Issei's current goals are. I presume you must be my progenitor, right? What do you ask me to do? Malak asked, to which Isai nodded. Now we will show the factions the wrath of the Red Dragon Emperor, Isai declared, with Malak agreeing to his progenitor's declaration. Indeed, we are going to correct the errors caused by their own decisions, Malak responded in agreement. But the most detestable beings, they will suffer the most. Isai spoke coldly. And they take what they want by force and use humanity as a means to fight their wars and send them to the slaughterhouse, Malak spoke coldly, but with venom laced in his voice. I must say that the supernatural world is a depressing sight right now, but with those beings gone, the world will be a much better place, Issei said with a smile, not hesitating to wipe out anyone that is in his way. The supernatural is afraid of only losing their way of life, Malak also said with a smile. I am USA spoke with a smile. And you or me? Malak spoke with a smile. And together we shall use our power to bring despair onto those that have made us into who we are. Both spoke in unison, as everyone watched them. And I shall use this power to impart the rage I carry inside for all I have suffered and make them suffer one by one, Isai declared coldly while hugging his duplicate before splitting up. Invol and Valerie watched this in horror. Isai was the leader of the faction that are trying to destroy them. They did not know what to do next. Little do they know that it was not close to what Isai has done up till now. Chapter 6. New Allies, New Enemies. The look of disbelief and terror that were on the faces of Invol and Valerie were palpable. As this was going on, the scene started to change as they spoke. Now what? Invol spoke, disbelief in her voice and face. The fact that Malaki was the clone of Isai, And Isai being the leader of this new faction that mercilessly destroyed Grigori was really something. We can't help but watch, and from what I think we will be seeing some of the attacks, seeing that Great Red's vision was not gone. Valerie spoke with nervousness. She was afraid, given that Isai was not even using his strength. She has not even seen his full strength. Both the girls understood why Seraph Gabriel was unable to tell the truth, given that nobody knows the full extent of the faction's strength, or even Isai being the leader. It would shatter any morale or hope the factions had. Not to mention, if Malik was strong enough to take on cadres without a problem, who knows how strong Isai is? The thought alone scared the girls. The face-off against an enemy on that level was too much. When the scene changed, they saw Isai, not in his disguise. They saw him having a mocking grin to what seemed to be Gabriel, who was in a state similar to Aquino, only except she had slumped her to do so. No. Valerie kept her hands on her mouth, horrified that Isai must have used his hallucinations to weaken whatever morale she had. They looked at Isai, who was practically unaffected. Well, Gabriel, it was easy to deal with you along with the rest of your brave saints, Isai spoke with a mocking smile. As he touched Asara's frozen body, it felt like her whole soul is completely gone. Isai walked ahead, trying to take some things from heaven. However, this was nothing but an act to lure his target, his real target. You bastard! You are going to pay for what you have done. A voice shouted. Essie turned his attention to the being. It was his target, Elizabeth Lioness, just as he had planned. Elizabeth had a murderous look on her face. She recognized him. He was Isai Heidu, Dee's older brother, as Isai spoke with a cold smile. Oh, please don't act like that. All I am doing is judging your boss for her crimes, Isai spoke sweetly, as he continued. Besides, wrath is a sin, and you may fall. Elizabeth gritted her teeth in fury. He was able to take down Gabriel when she was at her most weakest. You're a vile monster for doing this. Don't you have a heart? Elizabeth shouted in fury as Isai looked at her with a smile and spoke. You're right, I have no heart. Think I left it in my other shirt, Isai spoke jokingly, as Elizabeth became even more angry. After which he lost his smile and turned serious. In that case, shall we begin? Isai spoke while summoning his boosted gear. Elizabeth was worried on whether she will make it out of the fight alive or not. Not to mention, she needed to secure Gabriel and get out of here. Let's spice things up, shall we? Isai spoke with a smile as two wings came from his behind. This was the divine dividing came from behind. Elizabeth was really frightened as Isai spoke with a smile. Fusion balance break. Vanishing Welsh dragon balance breaker. Drake's voice boomed across the heaven with Isai being careful to apply a barrier so as to prevent his aura from leaking outside, as well as preventing Elizabeth's escape. The balance breaker was described to be that of having both of the gears incorporated in it. His arms were similar to his Welsh dragon counterpart, while several parts of his armor had the vanishing dragon aspects. His armor had both green and blue gems belonging to each of the gears. Don't tell me he fused both balance breakers, Valerie spoke with surprise. But underneath fear was building up in her heart. He can use both of the heavenly dragon's powers without any issues. I think so. I doubt Elizabeth would survive this. She is outclassed, and Vold spoke looking at her in the same tone. Valerie could only hope that things go well. As the vision continues, this armor will not stop me from saving Lady Gabriel, Elizabeth declared while bringing out two light spears with his say only raising his hand. Drag then chance. Divide, 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 Drake commanded as her spears reduced to nothingness, but Elizabeth refused to give in. Let there be light. Elizabeth chanted one of her strongest spells to subdue Isai Heidu. Elizabeth fired off drill-shaped projectiles as Isai spoke. It's useless. Drag then spoke. Divide, 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 divide. The drill-shaped projectiles were reduced to nothingness. Elizabeth gritted her teeth in fury. Her strongest spell was nullified into nothingness. Essie was bored. He dashed towards Elizabeth before she could react. He grabbed her by the head and slammed her on the ground. At enough, Essie spoke in a mocking tone, as Elizabeth responded. I am not done yet. Light explosion, Elizabeth shouted as several beams of light surrounded Isai. Understanding what he had to do, Isai's wings glowed as Drake announced. Half-dimension. Drake declared, as the light beams that were about to attack Isai reduced the size of the objects, which included her light beams as well. Elizabeth was horrified at what happened as Isai started to fire a dragon shot at Elizabeth as he jumped away from the explosion. Vala was speechless seeing this. He was able to use both of the dragon's abilities without any problem. It did not help that Albion was silent seeing all of these. He couldn't help but be amazed by the way he managed to incorporate two gears into one without any repercussions, especially those that are considered opposite in nature despite seething at this. This is really something, Invol spoke, seeing that Isai was barely affected by the attacks. Once the dust settled, he saw Elizabeth groaning in pain, some of her feathers were on the ground, and she was bruised. As Isai approached her, some of her clothes were also torn. My, you put up quite a fight. You have potential, Isai spoke in amazement. The fact that a mid-rank angel was able to put up a fight truly amazed him. Tell me then you have one. Elizabeth spoke weakly as Isai chuckled, surprising the angel. Both Valerie and Ingvild were hoping that Isai wouldn't kill her, especially Valerie, since he hoped that she does not meet the same fate as Lavinia did. However, what Isai spoke surprised her. Now why would I do that when I have some use for you? Isai spoke with a smile as Elizabeth was horrified. She was thinking that Isai would torture her. I would like you to join me in my goals. You will be useful to me after all. Elizabeth internally was happy that there was no torture, but she would never join someone like him as she spoke with pure defiance. Despite being in this condition, I won't cooperate with people like you. Nothing in this world will make me join you. In that case, I guess you need some motivation. Isai deactivated his balance breaker and brought out Alphika Tyrant. What is that? Elizabeth asked with fear and confusion. Isai then responded, this is Alphika Tyrant, one of the holy relics, also known as the Holy Nail. Elizabeth widened her eyes. Him getting one of the holy relics was a huge issue, as Isai continued, and yes, it is a Longinus that has been undiscovered by the factions, and this can allow me to control anyone by rewriting their memories and personality. Both Valerie and Invol looked at each other in wonder. An additional holy relic. What was Issei talking about? 4 holy relics, but I thought there were 3. Invol asked, confused. Valerie took a while and put 2 and 2 together as she muttered. No way. Valerie spoke as Invol looked at her and asked, what do you mean? Valerie looked at her and spoke. What were the true Longinus, Incinerate, Anthem and Sephiroth Grail made of? The Holy Spear, Holy Cross and Holy Grail? Ingvild answered and then understood what Isai was speaking as she spoke. Don't tell me, he not only found out about the nails used in Christ's crucifixion, but also managed to create a Longinus based on that. Valerie spoke with fear. If anything, that meant he has access to the other holy relics. Then he could release Trahixa if he wanted to. They looked as Issei used the holy nail to control her mind. Issei continued, while Elizabeth feared the situation she was in. Elizabeth then spoke with a fearful tone. And no, please keep that away from me. I beg you, don't worry, it will only hurt you a little. Issei spoke with a smile, as 2 nails generated of light were lodged into her arm. The last thing were pleased before she passed out. No! Valerie exclaimed in horror. The fact that Issei was able to find a way to control someone terrified her, to no end. She feared that he could control anyone with the Alphika Tyrant. She looked at Ingvild, who also had the same thoughts. The scene then changed to Isai, having what seemed to be a mobile device, as he spoke with a grin, as he spoke with a cheerful tone. Say hello to unknown dictator. Issei held a smartphone in his hands as he started the device. This allows me to control the metal to the point it can even control electronic devices and hack into them, and this extends to even devices that use magic or run on magic power. An aura radiated from the Longinus, as this can basically control the technology of the whole world. If Isai so chose to, its true capabilities were unknown as Valerie gritted her teeth. That is why no one came to know of the attack until it was too late. Valerie spoke with slight anger as she watched the alarms get disabled. So this gear is capable of hacking into anything technological. How can this be possible? Invol spoke in surprise as she knew that the biblical God could never create something like this even at a time like this. I don't know. Only knows, but he is not going to tell us. Valerie spoke while shaking her head. They then see Elizabeth. Elizabeth had woken up. She saw that Isai was looking at her. As he spoke, "Oh, so you're finally awake. How do you feel?" Isai asked. "I feel like I am reborn. Thank you for making me see the truth, Lord Isai." Elizabeth spoke with admiration, as Isai spoke with a serious tone. "As much as I would like to receive gratitude, get up. We have work to do," Isai commanded as Elizabeth nodded as she spoke. "So how can I help?" Elizabeth asked, as Isai responded. "Simple. I need you to gather information on the holy relics as well as the heaven system. I will be checking on Malachi and seeing how the Gregory attack is going on right now." Isai spoke with a serious tone as he created a ring. And as Elizabeth spoke, "I won't disappoint you, Lord Isai," Elizabeth exclaimed in admiration as Isai nodded, as he then remembered, "Oh, I forgot here." Isai brought out a glove that looked like a purple glove similar to his Lightning Slayer gloves, as he then created a special gem using Annihilation Maker. He then enchanted the crystal with something called as Dark Light, a special metal that incorporates special magic that would enhance the user's strength and abilities, while also making them undetectable and susceptible to any detection abilities of the heaven. "What is this, Lord Isai?" Elizabeth asked with surprise as he spoke. "This is a dark light gem. When you absorb it, it will give you a burst of power, and you can hide yourself in heaven, and nobody will sense that something is wrong with you unless you want to reveal yourself. Oh, and it also prevents you from falling no matter what sin you perform." Essie spoke with a sense of pride, proud of his creation, as Elizabeth did not hesitate and take the stone and absorbed it into her being. Elizabeth started to glow with a dark purple light as Essie watched to know and happiness that his abilities are working perfectly as planned. Elizabeth's wings changed to a purple for a split second before reverting back to her white self. In addition, she grew 2 additional pairs of wings, which allowed her to become even stronger. "Oh, and one more thing, you can hide your wings," Essie spoke with a neutral tone as Elizabeth nodded. He then ends by saying, "I will take my leave, and you know what you have to do, right?" Elizabeth nods as Isai teleports out of there. Elizabeth looked at Gabriel with disgust, thinking why did she serve her so blindly before she showed the truth. Both Valerie and Invol were shocked. Elizabeth joined willingly, which made the girls wonder what exactly did Isai tell her, as Valerie spoke with fear. "What kind of gear is that?" He was capable of convincing her to join him. Invol also agreed. She did not know how capable that gear is, since Isai was able to convince her to join him. She then spoke with a nervous tone. "I don't know, but if that nail hits us, we might get our own selves rewritten." Before the conversation could continue, the scene changed, and this time, the scene was Olympus. The scene changes to a beautiful place, which they recognized, and this was Olympus. At least that's what it was before Malik and his droid army attacked. "Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that," Valerie asked. She knew that Olympus was not like Grigori, as he charged in with his droid battalion, along with Grievous and several Magna Guards, who were humanoid with having glowing red eyes and an exoskeleton similar to B1, except it was the same color as AB2. They held a double-bladed electrical staff, filled with a combination of dark light and God's Slayer magic. They held a double-bladed electrical staff filled with a combination of dark light and God's Slayer magic. The Magna Guards were strong enough to take out scores of Greek soldiers without any problems. "I will go and deal with our target. Can you handle the upcoming cavalries?" Malik looked at Grievous, who nodded. "It will be my pleasure dealing with these divine scum." Grievous spoke with a grin while agreeing to Malik's request. Malik teleported further inside the castle as Grievous saw the cavalries arriving. He smirked, seeing that they are outnumbered. Honestly, he was expecting about 10,000 of them to show up, but only a mere 100 did. "I am disappointed. I was expecting your boss to send a few tens of thousands, and here you guys are only a mere 100. Disappointing as always, divine scum," Grievous spoke with a mocking tone, as many were angry at this. "Don't think so highly of yourself, you metal-eyed monstrosity. We are more than enough for you and your army." The commander spoke with a tone of pride, to which Grievous only laughed. Or it is because the gods are afraid of us. Grievous spoke with a mocking tone, causing the commander to get even more angrier. They are not, they don't need to because we can kill you, the commander retorted arrogantly, to which Grievous only shook his head. He then turned to the young commanders and spoke. Show no mercy. The commanders nodded and gave the signal to the rest which commanded their battalions. The commanders started firing rocket launchers, blasters, and machine turrets with their ammo having God's Slayer magic embedded inside of them, wiping out the battalion in mere minutes. All these men could easily take on a high-class devil without a problem. The people were either burned, disintegrated or destroyed by the rocket launchers, riddled with blaster bolts wounds that were burned flesh that was shown throughout the body, or even the head, and other unfortunate locations. The commander was left alone, with Grievous approaching him menacingly and the commander falling on the ground. He crawled backwards in fear as the cyber general came closer to him. Why, you monster? The commander spoke with fear as Grievous merely scoffed. What's the matter? Where is all your pride, all gone in just one blow? Grievous spoke mockingly, as the commander gritted his teeth in fury. See, this is not over, the gods will kill you. The commander exclaimed in fear, as Grievous chuckled. Your gods will not come, wanna know why? Grievous spoke with a grin. It's because they don't care for you. To them you are nothing but cannon fodder, so that they would live another day and ask for help from your allies. Grievous brings out his two light blades and cuts the commander's torso in half. He stabs him in the head as he drops dead. He scoffed in disappointment as he was asked by his aide to continue pressing the attack. Many were killed mercilessly as the streets became littered with light blade attacks as well as blaster shots and rocket launchers. It seemed like that a natural disaster had occurred. Building rubble fell on the ground, glass was shattered, and the road was destroyed or riddled with dead bodies belonging to Greek soldiers of the Olympian faction. Both Valerie and Invol were horrified by what they saw. Valerie nearly puked by the attack. Grievous and the droid army showed no mercy. Invol was nearly about to pass out with Valerie catching her. Handle yourself. I know it is disturbing, but please, Valerie pleaded with Invol. She looked at her weakly and nodded. They remembered on how Zeus had acted when the assault happened. Instead of being saddened, he was furious that Grievous mocked him. He vowed to destroy the metalloid monstrosity at all costs. That combined with the attack on his faction angered him even more. They remembered the state Olympus was in. It was littered with dead bodies that were either riddled with blaster fire or burned. They were dismembered courtesy of the cyber general. The scene once again changed, and this time it was Artemis. She was described to be a woman with round blue eyes and long white hair with the bottom of her hair attaches to a large circular ornament. She wears a short revealing red dress, a silver necklace, and a pair of sandals. Like her origin, Artemis wields a large bow which is capable of firing arrows made of pure energy as a weapon. She faced off against Malik, and she was not holding back. She knew that this man was dangerous, as Malik used telekinesis to block her light arrows. She was at her last resort. Damn it, you have made a big mistake attacking us, Malik. Artemis shouted in pure fury, as Malik only laughed. What's the matter, virgin goddess can't get a single shot in? Malik taunted with a grin on his face. Despite this, Malik had to give props to what she is capable of. Her magic was powerful enough to withstand his electric torture, a feat that made Baraquil struggle, which was a bit tough. He grinned, knowing that she can give him a good fight. Artemis fired some more arrows at Malik. He used telekinesis to block them. She was an expert markswoman as she aimed for the head and heart. Maliki deflected the arrows back at her, as she took some damage. Despite this, she was resilient enough to easily handle her own attack. Malik charged at her with his red blade in hand as he slashed her, which caused Artemis to block it with her bow. She grits her teeth. Malik was much stronger in pure strength than she presumed. Not bad, not bad, you are the first to push me this far, virgin goddess of hunt. Such a shame that you will get no one to be with. Malik spoke with a mocking tone as Artemis grits her teeth and shouts furiously. All you men are nothing but rotten vermin. People like you are the reason why there is so much chaos in this world. Malik only scoffed at this as he speaks. Such hypocrisy. Men are no rotten vermin. Women can be equally rotten. Case in point, Karens. It's a shame that you will never get married. Maliki used his telekinesis to push her behind. Artemis recovers and fires some more arrows, which Maliki deflects back at her. It explodes as some of her clothing was destroyed. Artemis glared at Malak with anger. "Is that all you have got now, goddess?" Malak asked with a mocking tone, to which Artemis gathered the solar energy and converted into a beam made of moonlight. This was one of her abilities that she shared with her brother Apollo called light conversion. This allowed Artemis to fight during the daytime, while Apollo to fight during the nighttime. The whole concept was that sunlight and moonlight are the same since the light that the moon emanated was from the sun. That is why the light is the same. Using this, she fired a beam at Malak, who blocked it with his light blade. Using this opportunity, Artemis fired some arrows at Malak, which caused light to explode. Malak takes some damage from the attack due to him underestimating the attack. "Had enough," Artemis shouted. That attack took some time to generate. The good thing is that she doesn't necessarily need to use her arms to control her bow and arrow. However, when the dust settled, Malak was unfazed. Malak cranked his neck. Artemis widened her eyes. As she looked at the monster, he looked at her in a menacing grin and spoke. "I am bored now." Malak unleashed a barrage of lightning at the goddess, making her squirm in pain. She managed to recover as she was breathing. Her electricity was coursing through her body. "Ah!" Artemis shouted in pain as the electricity reignited. The electricity was special as it was God's slaying magic that Maliki had used. It was something Issei had given him in case Artemis becomes too difficult to alone. Artemis glared at Maliki as she spoke weakly. "You bastard!" Artemis, however, refused to give up. She used her bow, charging some arrows at Maliki. Some arrows hit Malak. As it exploded, Malak seemed to be on his knees. Is he allowing himself to be attacked? Invol looked at Valerie, who nodded as she spoke. Indeed, when Artemis' condition was reported to be severely bad, she had signs of electrical attack, but there was no signs of God's slaying magic used, which made the spectators wonder about Malak's intentions. With whatever strength Artemis had, she approached Malak. She looked at Malak while pointing his bow. "Any last words?" Artemis asked coldly while aiming her bow at her, as Malak had a smile. "Just a few. Never let your prey speak. I assumed you would, as a goddess of hunt, would know about this." Malachi's mocking words made Artemis even more angry. She was ready to fire, but before she could react, she felt a piercing pain in her stomach. Artemis looked down in horror. Malachi's red blade pierced her stomach. She coughed up blood, which fell on the nearby ground. She grits her teeth in pain and anger. Maliki does not hesitate, and used God's slaying lightning at her, as she was in close range in front of the man. She shouts in pain when she gets electrocuted by the wound. And electricity caused her to drop the bow as she was on the ground, groaning in pain. Malak had a holy nail in his hands as he spoke. "You fraud!" "Well," Malak spoke with a smile, "now you will serve man, the very same being you hate." Malak flung the holy nail, and the next thing she became unconscious. Invol and Valerie understood that she will become subservient, as Malak was altering a personality to make her a little bit more accepting of men as well as altering some of her memories. The scene again changes, as this time it was Isai looking at an unconscious Artemis. As she soon woke up, the nail had completely taken effect. As she looked at Isai with adoring eyes, "Oh Lord Isai, sorry for attacking your allies like that. I will never do it again." Artemis fell on Issei's legs, as Issei commanded in a cold manner. "Get up." Issei's command made the woman jump on her feet. "We have work to do." Artemis nodded, as she asked, "What is it you ask this humble servant of yours, Lord Issei?" Artemis asked with adoration, as Isai spoke in a cold and serious manner. "Let me make one thing clear, you are a pawn, and I wouldn't hesitate to eliminate you if you betray me. Let me make that clear." Isai spoke in a cold manner, while Artemis nodded. She did not want to anger her new leader like that. Issei secretly summoned a specialized gear that went behind her neck. If she ever thought of betraying Issei, he would eliminate her. "You will stay here and report me everything that Zeus and the Olympians do, and I want a proper and concise report. Is that clear?" Isai spoke coldly, as Artemis spoke. "As you wish." Artemis looked at Isai. Both Valerie and Invol were shocked at Artemis's current attitude. The woman that wouldn't ever bow to any man is now bowing to Isai, another man. The scene then changes to Artemis being chained as Say approached her. Valerie looks at Ingvild in shock as she asks, "What is going on?" Ingvild asks, as Valerie took a minute. Once Ingvild came closer, Artemis showed disgust in her eyes as Valerie understood what was going on. "I think this is the real Artemis." Her disgust for men shows that, and I believe this is before she wakes up. Valerie spoke seriously as they both wonder what Issei was going to do to her. "What do you want now, hi?" Artemis spoke coldly and disgust in her voice. She was not expecting or never expecting to see him in her mindscape. As Issei only grinned, he then transferred every single memory of his to the goddess. She was shocked by what she witnessed as a tear fell from her eyes, as Issei spoke mockingly. "So how does the man-hating goddess feel?" Artemis looked at Issei and asked in a shaky voice, as she had tears in her eyes. "Did you suffer heartbreak thrice?" Issei responded to her in a cruel and loud manner. "Yes. Yes, I fucking did. First was Ria's Gremory, she was the first I loved. But she chose die for not only his lies, but also his good looks. Then was Sarah Gabriel, she talked behind my back, but those two heartbreaks were nothing compared to what I received after that." Essay words made Artemis start to cry, as he continues, "It was Invol Leviathan that broke my heart the most. You are not the only that has suffered heartbreak, not even you can imagine the pain I have received, Virgin Goddess, always remember that." Issei shouted, he had fury in his eyes, which made Artemis flinch. It was soon followed by a sniffle, as even she cried. Invol fell on her knees crying endlessly as she remembered what Essay had suffered because of Valerie consoled her by crouching to her level and rubbing her back as she muttered, "I am so sorry, Ice. I am so sorry." Invol kept crying as she watched the vision, "But I still have hope that one day the world will be a better place for me, at least. I did not give up like you just because you have been heartbroken once." Issei spat coldly as he glared at the goddess who spoke weakly. "I am so sorry," Artemis apologized, as Issei only spoke in a cold voice. "DCH, save your apologies. I don't want to hear it from a quitter. Now you will watch as you yourself destroy your own faction." Issei spat as he walked away with Artemis pleading with him. "No, please hide you. I can help you. I can help you with your situation. No, please don't leave me here. I have suffered too. Please, my family is all I have." Artemis begged, tears falling from his Isai looked at her and spoke in a cold manner. "Then watch as the true colors of your family is revealed with time as you destroy them with your very own hands," Isai spoke while disappearing from the world as Artemis was left crying. Tears were not stopping from Ingbold's eyes as she kept crying. Valerie consoled her, gritting her teeth in anger and shame. Anger for what he did and shame for her falling in his lies and becoming no different than Rias Gremory, who admonished him to the point of no return. She felt like beating herself. A tear fell from Valerie's eye as well. The scene once again changed to Asgard, which surprised Valerie. After a while, Invol also stopped crying as they both wondered why Asgard was now shown. "Wait a minute. We never received information of an attack here." Valerie spoke with confusion, with Invol nodding in agreement. "Indeed, something is wrong." Hearing Ingvold spoke with worry in her voice, even Valerie was concerned about what will happen. The scene changes into some more droids. They look similar to the Magna Guards that had come with Grievous. These were BX series commando droids, as unlike the Magna Guard, their bodies were darkish brown in color, they held a blade in their arms. These were considered assassin droids. All the Valkyries were down as a blade was put at their throats, and the one that has infiltrated Asgard was Issei. "These droids intimidate me," Vali spoke nervously, with Invol nodding in agreement. The blades were even more intimidating as they felt like they could do anything. Indeed, they seemed to be for infiltration, given that we never found anything about an attack on Asgard. "The Valkyries that were blank on what happened," Ingvald spoke while gulping. She was afraid on what is going to happen next. Issei, on the other hand, turned his attention to Gonal. She was a beautiful woman around her granddaughter's age and has slender with large breasts. She has long, wide, silver hair, slightly tinged blue and purple eyes. She wears a blue officer's uniform with a skirt and black stockings. Gondel was breathing heavily, she was almost done, while Isai was unaffected. Close to him was the mortis blade, the same blade that he had used to counteract Malak at one time. "Why are you even doing this?" Gondel shouted in desperation and anger in her voice. She knew who Isai was in front of her, as she remembered the boy that she had met when Rogers introduced her boyfriend, D. She knew that the boy had hidden something, but if her granddaughter was happy, so was she. But then she also remembered to say, she heard that he was a pervert and a liar, but when she first met him, she couldn't deduce that in any way. However, she saw that Isai wanted to get away from her, which she to some extent, she didn't mind. And now, present time, Gondel was struggling to keep up with Isai's abilities. He had already disabled any alarms using Unknown Dictator. Nobody would even know that he is here, and those that did are already taken care of. We will find out very soon. My brother's grandmother-in-law, Isai, spoke in a mocking tone as two wings came in front of him as they chanted, "Divide, divide, 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 divide." Gondel felt like losing her powers. She tried using any sort of magic at him, and despite being caught off guard, she was still able to hold her own against Isai. Gondel responded with gravity magic, only for Isai to nullify it with his sacred gear gravity jail, which reversed the gravity as his eyes glowed a bright yellow color. He then turned his attention to Gondel and increased the gravity in the same position, making her fall to her knees. Isai dashed towards Gondel and started attacking her. She tried her best to block every single punch and kick. She was capable of blocking and deflecting at even dead angles. She dished out some of her own punches, one even landing clean on Isai's face and stomach, making him cough up. "So you are adept in hand-to-hand." Interesting. Isai boosted the speed of his reflexes and evasion, increasing it to godlike and eventually beyond godlike reflexes as Gondel could no longer dodge or attack Isai, instead forcing her to block. Isai laughing throughout the attack. "Damn it! His punches are getting stronger. It has to be the boosted gear," Gondel thought with frustration. She needed to end this as soon as possible. Gondel flew away using wind magic, pulling herself off her. She took a massive blast as it was too late for her to dodge. That is why she was in such a condition. She was not expecting an ambush from Isai. "It's time to end this," Isai spoke as both the gear's boosted gear and divine dividing activated in front of her. "Let's see if you can take two dragons at the same time," Isai spoke mockingly. Gondel gritted her teeth in frustration. She tried to create a barrier to protect herself, but it was too late. Boost, divide, 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 boost, divide. Gondel was on her knees. Her magic power along with her strength was gone as she looked to see a energy gathering in front of her eyes. Dragon Blaster Cannon Drag announced as a greenish-red blast was aimed at Gondel, who only looked in horror. She tried to escape, but the blast radius was too much. It took too much space and there was no escape. Once the blast connected, Gondel screamed in pain. Gondel was on her knees, most of her clothes were torn. Isai did not give her an opportunity to use her other magic. He had studied her fighting style, allowing him to counteract anything she did. He struck her when she least expected it, when she was going to sleep for a few hours to recover her strength. Didymalax's constant attacks, she was training relentlessly. This caused her to become exhausted, and Isai attacked her while she was resting. That is why she was so weak when she fought Isai. Isai approached her as she grits her teeth in frustration and anger. Ingvild and Valir were surprised by the way Isai used his abilities and intelligence. Not only did he strike her when she least expects it, but he did so without anyone even coming to know. "Is he going to?" Ingvild spoke, as Isai removed Alfika Tyrant, as Valerie nods in response. "Yep. And we can only watch as another falls to his control." Valerie spoke while gritting her teeth, not because of what happened to Gondel, but because of Isai becoming a monster that they created. "You will soon turn on your own faction." "My dear Gondel," Isai released a holy nail from his Alfaka Tyrant. "I will never join you. I never thought you would become like this, a monster. I will not hurt the people I care and love about." Gondel spoke coldly and with spite as Isai only shook his head and spoke. "Sweetheart, you don't have a choice. You see, this Alphaka tyrant is considered to be the holy nail used in Christ's crucifixion, and when this is used, you will become one of my followers very soon. Issei spoke with a maniacal grin as Gondel seethed in anger. You bloody cheater, do you not care for anyone? Issei shook his head again as he responded. Not anymore now, goodbye. Gondola Issei threw the nail as she tried to stop it, but it struck her neck. The next thing that happened was that she passed out. That means Valerie spoke with horror as Invol looked at her and responded. She is going to be similar to Artemis. Invol looked at Valerie with her being disheartened seeing Essie like this. You should have listened to me, but then again, conceited beings who look down upon humans due to their pride, and then they feel invincible. Eyes spoke coldly. As he then spoke, don't worry, once I am done with you, you will see things my way. The scene then changes to Gondel, in a similar position to what Artemis was in. Eyes approached her like usual. As Gondel grits her teeth, she then shouts, What do you want now? Gondel shouted. Issei only smirks sinisterly as he shows her his memories, which caused her to have a breakdown. Her granddaughter was with someone like him. Her expression changed to that of horror. No, please tell me, all of this is a lie. Gondel feared what would happen to her granddaughter, since she was with a man like him. He was only using her and not really loving her in any way aside from her body. Nope. None of them is a lie. These are my memories, my experiences with your granddaughter and the other girls. I hope you enjoy them. Gondola spoke with a sadistic grin. No. Gondel cried endlessly. Her granddaughter's future was completely in ruin. He remembered that while Raswas, due to her maturity, did not harass or look down upon him, she still was disgusted due to Issei's personality, which Dee apparently lied to, in order to gain her affection. Exactly. Just imagine the despair your Rosways would feel once she finds out the truth of my brother's true image. Issei spoke with a sadistic grin as Gondel looked at him. Issei then spoke mockingly, but don't worry. I will also make sure Rosway suffers. Well, let's just say she is in good hands. Issei walked away, leaving a despair-ridden Gondel, who pleaded from Issei. No, please. My granddaughter is not your enemy. Please, I beg you. Gondel pleaded, with Issei ignoring her. The Norse faction and my granddaughter is all I have. Please don't do this. Issei turned his head sideways, giving a side glare as he speaks. Then watch as your factions reveals their true colors to you very soon. Goodbye, Gondola. Issei spoke as Gondola was left crying in despair. She always knew Dai hid something, but she did not expect this. She could only help the things become better. The scene changes back to the real world. He called off his guards since his goal was to get Gondola on his side since she was a master magician as well as a master inventor. Gondola was still asleep as she soon then woke up implying the nail insertion was completely. I am so sorry, Lord Issei, for defending a lost cause like Asgard. Gondel spoke with guilt as Issei shook his head. But I can help you in taking down your enemies. But I can help you. How so? Issei asked with interest. He knew what she was capable of, but he wanted to see what she is capable of. I can create what is called Volander, which is a weapon that could be created to face off against the gods, similar to your god slayer magic. Not to mention, you can use that said magic to attack a said god. Gondel spoke with admiration. I can even transform myself into a weapon for you, Lord Issei. Issei nodded in agreement. Well, this just got awkward, Issei thought while sweat dropping. Gondel sensed this and spoke with sadness. Do you not want that? Issei shook his head and spoke. No, that's all right. And besides, does anyone else know of this? Only the 12 Valkyries, that's all. Gondel responded, as Issei asked, Osovius? Gondel shook her head and responded, No, she does not, and to do that, both the Valkyrie and their partner must sync their emotion, which is that we must have the same wavelength to do so. Issei nodded in agreement. I see. Well, forge the weapon, all right, and stay with Asgard and report me any information, Issei commanded with a neutral look as Gondel smiled in response, nodding in agreement. Very well then, I shall begin soon. Gondel agrees to Issei's command as Issei and the battle droids leave. With Gondel being disgusted, seeing that she was fighting for such a cause, she now desires to fight for Issei. The scene changes to Issei at the unnamed location as Issei and Drake have a conversation. Well, you should never underestimate your enemies. You should have used the nail. Earlier, only Drake spoke with a serious tone, but worry was hinted in his voice. I know it seems like I got carried away, Issei spoke while rubbing his head. To the spectators, Issei and Drake seemed more than just a host. They were like best friends, something that made Valerie jealous as she did not have such a relationship with Albion. I understand, but you have to take into account that your enemies will be way stronger than Artemis or Gondal. Drake spoke seriously, to which Issei nods and responds, I am aware, but I won't stop. I will achieve my goal, but leaving that aside, I would love to see a new world rising, and not just the supernatural are guilty. There are humans that also deserve to suffer for being so selfish while proving themselves to be superior. Issei's tone was determined, to which Drake spoke in concern, you will have a lot of enemies, partner. I know. Issei spoke seriously in agreement. When I stepped into this battle, I knew that I was going to have many enemies. We have those fools from the council. I still don't understand why do them house let them be controlled by people like them when Circe is alone can kill them. Then we have the Vatican, who do anything in the name of God, thinking that God will forgive them for unforgivable crimes like rapes and sexual assault. Isai spoke with frustration and disgust as he continued in a tone that also had sarcasm mixed in it. Then we have the fallen. They must have such a strong hand on their subordinates, to name a few. Understandable, partner, but you should rest for a while until you are ready for another fight. Isai nodded to Drake's words before resting for a while. He was awaiting Elizabeth's research. The light dies off as they see Office and Great Red looking at them. Their expressions were filled with shock, dread and worry, and in Valerie's case, determination. So how was your experience? Great Red spoke with a mocking smile, as Invol spoke. We must inform the factions, I don't want him to get hurt. Invol spoke with sadness and worry, since Asahi will soon face gods like Shiva or Vishnu, as they are known to be very strong. She was worried that he may get injured or worse killed. I am sorry, but you promised to not inform them, remember? Ophis spoke in an expressionless tone, but she understood the concern of the girl. However, she knows that Issei will find a way to deal with them. Invol looked away, as Valerie then spoke. I don't think that I made a promise like that. Valerie's words caused both of the dragons to get angry as Ophis spoke with the same emotionless tone. You better keep quiet, or you will be in deep trouble. Ophis spoke coldly, and besides, you should be careful of your words, White Dragon. I am sorry. Issei is killing people, and he must be stopped. Valerie spoke seriously as Ophis spoke. You are a fool then if you think that this will work, Ophis spoke coldly, to which Valerie spoke coldly. You just don't want to help us. Ophis nodded in agreement. That's right. I don't intend to help them. They have already lost our faith. That's right, foolish hatchling. Neither me nor Ophis is going to stop him. If anything, we will help him if he asks us to do so. Great Red announced, causing the girls to fear the situation. Valerie then spoke. In that case, I want to talk to Isai. If I can convince him, then we can stop his madness. Valerie exclaimed, to which she left the dimensional gap off his side and spoke. Cool. Great Red then responded, she is screwed. Little does she know that Issei is much stronger than she remembers. If he doesn't hold back, it will only take a minute for the fight to end since you won't lend her your powers, right Ophis? Ophis nods in agreement. Great Red contacts Issei about the situation. But please, let me talk to and convince him to stop Invol, requested Ophis. She still believed that people can change, to which Ophis shook her head. No. It's too late for that, Ophis spoke coldly. You have come to your senses, but you will be only hypocrites thinking that will listen to you. Both you and the factions have treated them like garbage, and even you to some extent wanted to help all of you unconditionally despite what you have done. Right. And Vold looked away. Ophis was not wrong as she looked at Ophis and asked, so what can we do? Ophis then asked seriously, I will ask you something. Are you going to break all ties with the bearer of Crom Crouch? Would you accept it? Yes. I want to be free of that man and be with Issei, Invol exclaimed without hesitation. As Ophis nods in agreement, she then extends her hand to her chest, and a golden glow comes out revealing her queen piece. The piece then lost its glow. During the process, Invol felt like something came out from her soul. Office then held her queen piece and gave it to the Leviathan princess. Scene change. Valerie was heading out of the dimensional gap. She decided to head to Hades's domain, thinking that is where Issei would most likely be. However, before she could react, a purple mist came from nowhere engulfing her. After a while, she seemed to be in a different dimension. This is dimension lost. Valerie spoke with surprise. She understood that it was either Gay or Greasy-Eye that did this. Exactly, a voice called her out as she turned around to see Isai. He now wore a black shirt that stuck to his body, revealing his tones and muscles. He wore a nylon track pants and red shoes. So Great Red told me that you wanted to talk to me, Isai spoke seriously, to which Vali responded, stop this madness. You are killing innocent people, don't you care for anyone? Isai shook his head and responded, not anymore. The hero you once knew is dead, killed by the very people he had once defended. The factions are coming to an end, and there is nothing you can do about it. So you will not listen, Valerie growled with anger and worry. She knew that Isai can easily beat her. No, why should I? Didn't you admonish me? Didn't you humiliate me? Harass me, just like Ria's and her peerage of monkeys? Honestly, the fact that you are asking me to not end the factions after everything they did to me is madness. So give me a damn good reason why I should help them or stop attacking them, Issei shouted in fury. Because you are killing innocent children, men and women. Valerie tried to reason with Issei. But Issei interrupted her. He was not having any of it. The same people that looked down upon me and admonished, why should I not destroy the factions? Why should I care for them when they never did for me? Tell me, Valerie, why should I? Issei shouted in fury. He was even more angrier. Valerie was guilty. She couldn't help but agree with what Issei said. He was right. But Valerie tried to speak, but she was unable to release any words from her mouth. However, she couldn't remove any words. However, what Isai spoke surprised her. I have a better idea. Let's do a wager. If you can manage to beat me or at the very least wound me enough for me to notice, then I will not only stop the attack, but I will also turn myself. And Issei spoke in a neutral tone, which made Vali widen her eyes in shock. However, she doesn't even know what Issei has planned for her as he continued. But if you lose, you will join me without question and do whatever, and I mean whatever I ask you to do. If I ask you to kill Lavinia right now, you will do it without hesitation. And if you betray or disobey me, I will not hesitate to kill you. Is that clear? Issei declared with a mocking grin, with Valerie being speechless. She wanted to get angry, but she believed that this could be the only chance for her to stop Issei. And after that, she would expose Dai to the factions. Very well then, but you must keep your word. Valerie spoke seriously as she activated her divine dividing as she spoke. Balance break. Vanishing Dragon Balance Breaker, Albion announced. Valerie entered into her balance breaker. Dreg then asked mentally, partner, are you sure about this? Issei then also responded, there are a few things that can directly counter her without a problem. 2 gears can easily put her in place. Very well, I trust you on this one, buddy. Issei nods as he enters into his balance breaker state. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Both Issei and Valerie were gathering their auras as they charged at each other. Issei made sure to reinforce his armor, making it harder for Valerie to land blows. Divide. 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 Issei started to feel the loss of his power, but it was immediately recovered. This surprised Valerie, as Issei kept increasing his strength. Boost. 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 Issei's power kept increasing as he clashed with Valerie, tackling her, sending her flying. Valerie recovered instantly as she decided that the only way she could beat him was by entering Imperial Juggernaut Drive. Hi, who is about to awaken? I'm the White Dragon Emperor who will take the law down to the darkness. I walk the road of domination with infinite destruction, and by piercing through the imaginary dream, I shall become a pure Emperor of White Dragon, and I shall have you obey the silvery white illusions and the perfect evil ways. Imperial Juggernaut Drive. Albion and Valerie announced as she entered into her Juggernaut Drive. She decided to use her compression divide on him as Issei was being squished. Issei decided to use his incinerate anthem as holy flames started to form around Valerie. Issei activated the flames as it started to burn her armor, making her grit her teeth in pain. This forced Issei to release her. Seeing an opportunity, Isai dashed in front of her and gave her blow after blow to her face. As she repeatedly took the blows, the flames kept burning through her, weakening her severely. Isai's punches were precise and quick, along with each blow shattering her armor before she could even react. Valerie was pushed behind with some of her armor damaged. Valerie tried to use Divide again after gaining some distance. However, it had no effect. Any power she divided, it felt like Issei regenerated his strength. "You wonder why my power is not reducing, right?" Issei asks, to which Valerie looks surprised. As Issei speaks, "You see, my original body was destroyed when Samuel's poison entered into me. But then how does it matter?" Valerie asked. As Issei then asked, "Tell me, Valerie, which dragons are not affected by Albion's divide?" Valerie thought for a moment and spoke, "Great Red, Office and Drag." "Wait, no way." Issei grinned in response as he exclaimed, "You're right. My body was made up of Great Red's flesh. As a result I wield the dream, and as for Office, her power courses through my veins. As a result I became a humanoid dragon, a forbidden existence that has the flesh of Great Red and the power of Office." Valerie widened her eyes after hearing this, with Albion speaking. "You will not win this, Valerie, not even with Diablo's dragon Lucifer you can." Albion spoke with worry as Valerie started to cry. Her tears fell to the ground as she understood her chances of winning are next to non-existent. It made sense since Issei defeated her twice without much effort, and with his current power, she would lose big time. "It's time to end this." Issei spoke seriously as he exclaimed, "Balance breaker. Dragons of neutrality." Issei activated its incinerate anthem's balance breaker. The flames started to compose themselves into two huge dragons. One looked like a bipedal dragon and the other looked like tree-like dragon. Valerie tried to escape, but it was too late. "Say hello to Grendel and Leighton." Both dragons looked at her in the eye. They then spoke. "So, you are our opponent?" Grendel looked at Valerie, who flinched, with Leighton responding, "Indeed she is. Let's show our master what we are capable of." Surprised, these are flames resembling the original Grendel and Leighton. The real ones are still sealed in heaven, and they are as strong as the original, except they are made of holy flames. Valerie gulped in fear upon Isai's explanation. The dragons unleashed a flame storm onto Valerie that started to weaken her severely. As the conflagration started to come closer, Valerie had no place to escape. She could fly, but the flames were too tall. There was no escape. The flames reached Valerie, who feared what might happen. She didn't want to surrender due to not only her pride, but also what might happen if she did surrender. The fact that she would have to kill Lavinia would be, she couldn't imagine herself doing that thing. However, she wanted to win, even with zero chance of winning. Issei watched his prey struggle as she tried to fly up, but she was unable to do so. Valerie shouted in pain. The flames burned her body as her Imperial Juggernaut drive fell apart. She was burnt. Essiel stopped the flames and recalled Grendel and Leighton, who were happy that they got a chance to fight. Essiel flew close to her as he spoke in a cold tone. "I won." Valerie looked away, tears falling from her eyes, as Essiel continued, "You know what will happen right now. You will do as I say without question, and you will die if you betray or even think about betraying me." "I know." Valerie spoke weakly with tears in her eyes. Moments later, Office came as she spoke. "Invol is back at the Hayate residence. If you are wondering, Valerie," her tone is emotionless as she asks, looking at Isai, "so she lost?" "Indeed, Office, can you do me a small favor?" Isai asked, looking at Office, who responded, "Give me an imported Cadbury's chocolate, and you have gotten yourself a deal." Isai spoke with a smile, to which Isai sighed and nodded. Her chocolate love is almost on par with his love for Diet Coke. "Done. So can you just put a snake so that if she ever tries to betray or disobey me, it would kill her?" Isai asked, to which Office nods in agreement. The snake was summoned from her hand. Valerie had to accept her fate. She chose this wager and lost, big time. Now Essie will use her for his goals, and there was nothing she could do about it. And the best part is that I don't even need to use the long Enos. I'll fake a tyrant for this, Essie thought with a mocking grin. Seeing Valerie in such a condition, he wonders on how he can use her. He also needs to plan his next move. After all, the factions are becoming desperate, and soon one of his goals will be soon fulfilled. Valerie's face was tear-stained due to the amount she was crying. Isai saw that the snake curling inside of her body and enters into her heart. If you betray and or disobey Isai, you will die. Office spoke emotionless. She brought this on herself. As Valerie nods, she then asks in a weak tone, "Can I go home?" To which the duo nod as Valerie teleports herself back to the Hayato residence. So what's your next plan? Office asks. We lay low, see the aftermath of the two attacks, both on Grigori and Olympus, and then plan our next move. Slowly but surely, the factions will get desperate, but I know they aren't going to surrender Nyx, not without some repercussions. Essie continued to speak, and doubt is starting to brew among the people, presuming that D is not their hero, although small, but it's enough for now. The seeds of doubt have been planted, and soon, all we need to do is wait for them to bloom. The people believe in the faction leaders and the false hero. Soon things will change, and all we need to do is wait for the right time to strike, Issei spoke seriously. Office nods as the two then head to get some chocolate before Issei heads to Persephone. Soon, he would have to go back to that jail known as Haida Residence to avoid any suspicion. Chapter 7 Broken Pride. The next day, Haida Residence, 9:30 a.m. For the last time, I see no reason to tell you where I am. Issei exclaimed in annoyance. He was surrounded by the Gremory peerage, his parents, and his siblings with Dai's peerage. Issei rested his arms on the sofa bed. The only ones that were missing were Invol. You disappeared for a week and didn't bother to call us, of course, we want to know where you are, Gora retorted angrily, as Mickey, Ika, and even D agreed to his words, to which Issei took a sip from his Diet Coke. Like I said before, I see no reason to call you or even tell you where I am. Issei took an additional sip. His words made many of the group angry, and besides, you didn't care before where I went, so why do you care now? Issei's words made them change their expressions. They were surprised by Issei's words as Mickey spoke. We care for you. That is why we asked you where you were. Issei scoffed at this and spoke in a cold tone. You only care for me because now the factions are in danger. Mickey and Gore retorted to this claim as they cared for him as Issei got up with his Diet Coke in hand. If anything, you only looked at me now and not your perfect children is because Malik has made short work on Grigori and nearly wrecked Olympus. Issei's words made both Mickey and Gora keep their hands on their face in shock. While D was angry at the fact that Isai called him perfect in a mocking tone, while Laika herself was shocked by this. Isai was about to leave when Riaz demanded, Stop right there, Isai. Isai looked at her in an annoyed look. His anger was emanating from his face. He glared at her, sending shivers to her and the Gremory peerage. What? Isai commanded in an annoying tone. His gaze felt like they were going to die horrible. His gaze alone felt like Satan class. We just Riaz was unable to speak. Fear took over her body as Isai shouted. Speak up, Gremory. Riaz stammered and recovered herself. She then spoke while nervously gulping. We just want to know where you were. That's all. After that, we won't bother you. Isai scanned the Gremory peerage, except Akano, who was robotic. The others were seen to be nearly scared to death, including their king herself. Seeing her in the state made Issei happy. Like I said before, you didn't care before where I went, so why you care now if you will excuse me? I need to do some work. Issei had started to walk deep inside the residence to enter into his room. He had kept his duffel bags earlier when he had come here. Do you even know about the attack on the factions? A voice exclaimed. Issei turned around to see Aika was the source of the voice as she continued, People are dying because of you. Does it not concern you even a little bit? Issei turned his eye towards Aika, his eyes glowing with rage. He has had enough of their entitlement. He is a dragon, and he will do as he pleases. It was about time to show them that he will not hesitate to put them down. And do you think I care? Tell me something, Ik. You have the nerve to demand me for help, especially after the things you did to me. Issei spoke with slowly raising his tone. This started to intimidate his family, and the Gremry peerage with these peerage. He started to walk towards Ika, who started to regret her choices. The others, especially her parents, were worried on what he would do too. Before anyone could react, Issei pulled Ika by the hair, who started to shout due to the pull. Goru and Mickey both demanded, "Let her go, Issei." Goru shouted, to which Mickey responded, "She is your sister, let her go." Issei looked at his parents dead in the eye and screamed, "Shut up." Issei's words silenced both of them. They were now really worried on what Issei will do to her. Issei turned his attention to Ika, increasing his volume at every step before ultimately screaming. He started to release his aura, having enough of their attitude. "I am sick and tired of your entitlement, Ika. You don't command or control me. Let me make this very clear right here and right now. If I ever see you demand me to help the factions or their people ever again, I will make sure to do something far worse than what I did to Valerie and put you in the morgue. Am I clear?" As he screamed into Ika, who was almost brought down to tears due to her fear. As he then turns his attention to the rest of the people present, he scanned the audience. Asia was already knocked out. He saw D, shivering in fear. He internally smirked seeing their states. Even his parents were terrified, and all of the peerage were shivering in fear. They were unable to speak or move. To them, Isai was worse than a monster. After all, he threatened his sister, his own flesh and blood. Issei dropped Ika, who was crying. She scuttered away from her brother in fear as her parents were in front of her protecting her from him. Issei got even more angrier at this as he spoke with a growl. "You defend her when you never defended me. And you have the gall to ask where I was when you never even came for me. Let me make one thing very clear. Never ask me again where I am, or you will meet the same fate as Ika. Let me make that clear." Isil shouted as he walked into the residence even further. He hated coming back here, but he had no choice. But he has given them his declaration. He will not hesitate to kill them if they even think of demanding his help again. Isil had released some of his pent-up anger he had for his parents. However, this was just the beginning. The suffering he experienced for so long was nothing compared to what he just screamed at them. We need to release Nyx. T-Had is our only option to ask for our brother's help. Ika spoke looking at her parents and her friends with a shaky voice, tears stemming from her eyes. As the others looked at her, most were unable to move due to Isai's outburst. Desperate times call for desperate actions. Invol was sitting in the room, depressed on what or who Isai really was. She was asked to stay quiet by Office. At first, she was reluctant, given that she thinks that the factions will give him the justice he deserves. But Office refused any such involvement. She, however, is grateful to Office for not only showing her and Office the truth of Dai, as well as what he truly is, but also she was happy because now she is no longer part of his peerage. She was disgusted in her older self for even falling in love with him. She remembered her nightmare where she was married and eventually lived what can be considered a loveless marriage. Such an event still brings shivers to her spine even till now. "I can't say anything to anyone because my hands are tight." Invol spoke with a sad tone. She was imagining scenarios on how Isai would kill anyone that are his enemies. And right now the whole factions are his enemies. She remembered his words, which he had shouted as he had grabbed her hair. "I will make you see the monster that you're responsible for creating. I want you to see as I will take away everything and anything away from you, which held some importance to you. You shall watch as I destroy and burn down the very people and world you once cared for right in front of your eyes. And you won't be able to do a thing except watching in despair losing your beloved boyfriend, friends and family, everything by my hands. And for that to happen..." Issei's words brought shivers to her spine. The attacks have already begun, and Malik and his army are unstoppable. The droid army was strong enough to withstand magic attacks from cadre-level fallen angels. Magic was not that effective against them. Now those words make sense. He is going to wipe them all out. Invol spoke with fear. She knew that no mercy would be shown to anyone, not until he gets what he wants. Invol decided to freshen up. She went inside a room to take a proper shower to start off her day since she needed to freshen herself up. She wanted to talk to Isai to convince him that she can still fix things, not between them, but at the very least, so that Isai does not hurt himself. Once she is done, wipes the wet hair on her body and heads to get some clothing. She sees her wardrobe where she sees several dresses, wondering what she should be wearing today. She looks at her wardrobe, scanning for anything different she would be wearing. However, as she was looking at the dresses, when all of a sudden her expression changed to that of anger and disgust. So that's what his intentions were, Ingvild growled while gritting her teeth. She saw that the dress that she had seen was revealing in certain locations in the shoulder area as well as her belly area. The dress was actually given to her when he introduced her as the queen of his peerage a year ago. However, to her, it was only meant to show her off. I was nothing but a trophy to him, Invol shouted as flames appeared in her hands. Moments later there was a small explosion as the dress caught on fire. Soon after she turned her attention to the rest of the clothing, as other gifts I gave her, which included jewelry, perfumes, and other cosmetics, as she destroyed the rest as well. She only had one clothing, and that was the one she wore when she met the brothers back in the park where only one truly loved her. While the other saw her as a trophy, she chose the wrong one, and that incident would haunt her. It was a white dress typical of female noble devils that exposes much of her large breasts, with high slits and long sleeves. She also wears a black miniskirt. The other was a cool female school dress. I will settle for my school dress, for now I really need to go do some shopping. Invol spoke with what seemed to be a satisfied smile. She opened a pocket dimension which had the money she earned in it. This was not under Dee's control, allowing her to use it whenever she wanted. It was not much, but it was satisfactory if she needed to buy some clothes for herself. After which, she leaves to buy some clothes after wearing her school uniform, ignoring the mess of burnt clothes and other items she left behind. Scene change. Isai and Office were watching some Orphicerata as there was barely much to watch. However, as they were watching, a magic circle appears, which reveals to be none other than Artemis. So what brings you here? Isai asked seriously, as Artemis spoke. I have some news to provide you with. Your staged fight was a problem, and there has been some suspicion in our faction. Artemis spoke. Isai understood this, and used his dimension loss to make sure nobody hears about this. Once the dimensions have been altered, Artemis spoke coldly. You see, my sister Athena suspects you, Lord Issei. She has been watching your battle with Maliki, and is trying to find something that would show anything that could prove her claims. Artemis's words made Isai grit his teeth in fury. She was not the goddess of wisdom for nothing. So what will you do? Apis spoke emotionlessly, as Isai thought for a moment. We have two choices, either we eliminate her or we can make her join us. Isai spoke for a moment. Besides, her intelligence can be a useful asset. Isai speaks as he brings out a dark cloth, which was the same cloth that Isai used to make the dark light gem. Is that the dark hand? Office asked, recognizing the gear. As Isai gave a smile, he then responded, Indeed it is. It's what allowed me to turn Elizabeth into a dark angel. You see, dark light is similar to the power that Lucifer had personally created and wielded. Isai started to explain. It turns out a certain amount of exposure can turn an angel into a dark angel. This allows them to remain in heaven while being much stronger. It was his attempt to turn as many angels and fallen into dark angels, and you know how much stronger a dark angel is. Right. Artemis and Office nod in agreement, as Isai continues his explanation. However, the dark light that Lucifer created had a lot of flaws. Those flaws were corrected by yours truly. One of the major flaws was that if Angel and even the fallen angel had a lot of holy power to counter it, dark light will be destroyed, similar to when our immune system destroys a foreign bacteria. And the second major flaw was that it was hard to generate this type of magic. Although I must say, Lucifer was a fucking genius. Without him, I would have never created the Dark Angels. Isai spoke with a grin, with Artemis and Office both wide in their eyes in surprise. But how did you know of this? Even I was unaware of this, Office asked, to which Isai smiled at her and responded. You see, Malik's attack that took place a year ago, when he went up against the DXD team, had two intentions. One was to crumble the morale of the factions, and two was to gather more information from the Lucifer's castle. When majority of the teams were facing off against Malik, I entered into the castle, dealt with the guards to learn more about the devils while I was finding copper. Turns out I found gold. Isai spoke with a grin. I found out about the existence of dark light. I even knew that Lucifer had hid this information from his own descendants, probably because of his own arrogance and pride, but that is why. Isai ended his words, as Artemis asked. Lord Asiel, so he hid it from his own descendants. Is that why RageRevan or Euclid did not know of this? Asiel nods in agreement. Indeed, Artemis, and I am pretty sure that those two would have completely perfected dark light, especially Euclid. He is one of the smartest devils out there. Isai spoke seriously, to which Artemis nods. Phyllis grits her teeth in anger, remembering their intentions of attacking her to take her power. Phyllis reeled her anger in. She then asked, so dark light can turn an angel into a dark angel. But how will it work against someone like Athena? Ophis asked as Isai spoke while activating Alpha Tyrant, which made the two understand what he was going to do. Isai generated a nail from the Alpha Tyrant and inserted it into the gem. He then used some metal to generate a gold chain with a purple gem at the center. As he then spoke, the effect will be slower than usual. But that is what I intend to do, Issei muttered, something which Ophis heard as he then turned to Artemis and spoke. Artemis, I have a gift for your sister Athena. After all, gems are women's best friends, Issei spoke with an evil grin. He then explained what she had to do, to which Artemis took the chain and nodded in agreement. The Artemis inside her mindscape begged Issei to not do this, but nobody heard her. She was fearful on what will happen to Athena. However, neither the other Artemis nor Issei listened to her, leaving her to cry for what is going to happen. Issei teleports everyone back to the real world, as Artemis then teleports to Olympus to perform her task. Issei and Ophis continued to watch the anime for a while, as someone came inside the room. This was Kuroka. This caused Issei to pause the show and looked at her in an annoyed expression. What do you want, Kuroka? Issei spoke with annoyance. Ophis agreed to Issei as Kuroka asked with a bit of anger. Have you seen Vali anywhere? Issei then spoke with an even more annoyed tone. She is not my monkey, so she is not in my circus, so you can leave. Issei's words angered Kuroka as she grits her teeth in fury. Kuroka then shouts, You are so hateful, Naya. Kuroka storms out the room in anger. Issei looks at her and continues watching his show. He couldn't reveal that Vali was now on his side. Let's see how you react when your leader betrays you, Issei thought with a sinister grin as he and Ophis watched the show. Scene change. Olympus, 11 a.m. Zeus and Hermes were sitting on the table discussing on what needs to be done. They have been unable to sleep due to the assault that had happened recently. Many factions are also having sleepless times due to what is going on. That it seems like the kid has us in his hands, Zeus spoke with a bitter laugh. We don't have many options. So Nyx will be released, right? Hermes asked with wonder, to which Zeus responded, Indeed, I want you to get some soldiers to make sure Nyx is guarded. It will be done. Father Hermes got up and left the Zeus side. I hope I am not doing a mistake, Zeus spoke sadly. He did not want to do this, but he had little to no choice. Scene change. Elsewhere, in the temple of Athena, Athena herself was reviewing the fight between Issei and Malik. She was trying to identify anything out of the ordinary. Athena was doing this on repeat so as to find anything that would be off. Darn it, I can't anything in this video. Athena spoke with frustration while rubbing the bridge of her nose. Athena then heard some footsteps, after which she closed everything she was doing. She then turns her attention to see Hera knocking, followed by a familiar voice. Sis, I need to talk to you. Are you available? Artemis asked from the door, to which Athena responded, Yes, just give me a minute. Athena goes to the location where Artemis was, who kept the videos in a safe space. Her tone was a bit awkward as she opened the door for her sister. She opened the door to be greeted by her older sister, who looked at Athena and asked, Sister, I don't understand, how can you be with these monsters? Artemis exclaimed while feigning anger and annoyance. Athena, understanding her sister, spoke, You should probably get a partner. Being single won't help, Athena spoke while referring to her hatred of men. Not even in my worst nightmare, but I have some things to ask you, Artemis spoke with a serious tone. Go ahead, Athena asked in a neutral tone. Even if you are trying to find the truth, what would happen if, let's say, that the Red Dragon Emperor is one of our enemies? Artemis asked, feigning curiosity. Athena gulped in fear upon what Artemis has asked. She knew if that were the case, then they would be screwed as Athena spoke with terror. We are talking about someone who can take on Azazel and Malak without using his boosted gear, took the White Dragon Emperor down twice without much effort, has access to Dragon's Slayer, which is heaven's most guarded secret, and has a book that can replicate any sacred gear. Athena looked at her older sister, terror in her eyes. Don't even ask a question like that, big sis. If he is our enemy, then we are done for. Artemis gulped. She already knew Issei's full power, but she had to agree with her sister so that the latter does not become suspicious as she nods. Well, I have something to give you. Artemis brought out a necklace, which Issei had given her. Athena looked at it, and understood that it must have been expensive. Sis, that wasn't needed. You needn't have brought it for me. Athena spoke with slight sadness, to which Athena shook her head and responded, It's not a big deal. Besides, I feel like it would have looked good on you. Artemis spoke with a smile as Athena took the necklace. You will soon see the error of your ways, sister. You will soon follow orders, say, Artemis thought with a small smile as Athena then spoke. Thank you, it is really beautiful, Athena spoke while looking at the necklace as she slowly took the necklace with one hand as she tried to wear it. Dear sister, let me help you. Artemis offered to make her wear it as she took the necklace and went behind as she wore it. Upon the chain being sealed, the necklace glowed for a short moment as Artemis's eyes became purple for a split second before returning to her normal pale green. Athena's fate was sealed. Unbeknownst to her, the dark light mixed with the holy nails from Alpha Tyrant would seep into her body little by little. As time will pass, sooner or later, after all good things happen to those who wait, while best things happen when you do it yourself. Soon, sister, you will regret your actions, Artemis thought with a smile, which soon changed into a sinister one. Well, I think I should take my leave. Then Artemis spoke, to which Athena nods as she left from her room, with Athena going back to doing what she was doing. Yes. It's hard to blame the red dragon without any evidence. It's after all hard to hide this. Athena spoke seriously while remembering that Artemis was the only one who knew of this. She continued to review the video that Tobio IQs had shown them, which was replicated by her. Back at the temple's entrance, Artemis had a smile on her face with her speaking. Things will be good. Artemis spoke while whistling. She was happy that she could do the job for Isai. In there, Artemis was only helpless as her own sister will soon fall to Isai's control. No say Artemi, sinner spoke in sadness. A part of her was happy that Isai did not choose to eliminate her. But she will also be a pawn like she is. Scene change. A few moments have passed as all the gods have gathered. Some were against Isai's demand of releasing Nyx from her prison. They believed that she would cause harm and more issues. But in reality, their pride has been destroyed and broken by the Red Dragon Emperor. Tell me, Zeus, you are joking, right? Hera looked at her husband, who shook his head and responded, No, I am afraid not. It's either that or Malak and his robot army wipes us out, Zeus responded seriously, as he then declared, Nyx will be released soon. You're just going to fall for the Red Dragon's blackmail just because we are unable to defeat this enemy, Hera exclaimed incredulously, and apparently, she was not the only one who shared a similar opinion. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and besides, it is either this or face extinction. You have seen what the robot army is capable of. Zeus spoke seriously, to which Hephaestus retorted. You plan to hand it over, just like that, as if nothing ever happened. Zeus looked at his fellow Olympians and spoke. In that case, does anyone want to watch over Nyx? Zeus asked coldly, to which many looked away, minus Athena, who raised her hand. So, you agree yourself to watch for Nyx? Zeus turned his attention to Athena and asked. Indeed I do, I agree to watch the primordial goddess of darkness, Athena spoke with a nod. This was noticed by Artemis, who also raised her hand, causing many to doubt her given her hatred for men. In that case, I will be joining you as well, since I won't let you alone with that disgusting being. Artemis spoke with a serious tone to clear any doubt anyone had. Besides, I can't leave you alone with my teacher, Artemis thought, since she needed to be careful due to Athena being one of the smartest people she ever knew. In that case, I asked you both to look after Nyx. The goddesses nodded to their father's command as Athena spoke. We won't let you down. Father Artemis agreed to Athena's words. Scene change. Underworld, 12 p.m. The Gremry peerage, Dai's peerage along with several others had headed to Underworld as they were healing the survivors of Malak's attack. They have been doing this for days. The wounds have been too severe for many. So much so that saving their lives was next to impossible. I can't believe that monster would do such things, killing such innocent people. Rose Weiss spoke with a sad tone, helpless on what had happened to them. I know Ross, I know Gondo consoled her, but internally she was angry at the fact that her granddaughter insulted her teacher. How dare you insult my lord? Meanwhile, Sergius was overseeing everything with a sigh on his face. He was not happy with what was going on due to Malak and his army attacking them over and over again, severely damaging the factions, even going so far as to deal with even gods, if need be. We need to increase more security, Sergius muttered, remembering that even other factions are doing the same. They don't even know where Malak and the army is. He even received reports that Hisoka, Aten, Olmedhold, Karnstein and Michael are doing the same, but there was no trace of the being. Moments later, Graphia shows up at Sergic's place. He was happy to see his wife Queen near him. At times like these, however, her expression concerned her. As she was not happy, she seemed to be worried for her son, Milikas, since Malak may even go after him, do him and his army, showing no mercy to innocent people, even children from the supernatural. Something wrong, Graphia? Sergius asked with worry, to which Graphia spoke. I am worried, Lord Sergius. What if we are unable to stop Malaki? Her voice was filled with fear. Sergius understood what she had meant. She barely had anyone in her life. Her whole family minus Euclid are dead, who was in prison due to affiliating with the Cow's Brigade, and her only family left are the Gremry family, including her most cherished people, Milikas and Sergius himself. We have to find a way soon at this step. We won't be able to escape from his attacks. Sergius spoke with concern and worry, to which Graphia asked with slight fear. And what do we do? Sergius spoke in a serious tone. We have to give in to say Hades' demand. Graphia widened her eyes in shock. She was not expecting him to resort to giving in to blackmail. She was speechless. Die Hades was always the solution to her problems, but now doubt was starting to brew. Even Sergius was starting to doubt Dai, which is something that Achuka, Shiva, and even Odin had. At this point, they were questioning the ethnicity of Dai's actions since Isai was able to take on a cadre class when they believed that he was weak and worthless due to Dai. However, they were too late to make amends or even realize this scene change. On the other side, Elizabeth was doing the same. However, she had to pretend so that they don't get suspicious. She had a sad look seeing this. However, internally she was happy that this happened. They were all fools, and it was a shame that they do not realize what they are doing wrong. They still believed I would save the day again. One of the Gabriel's peerage members showed up, and this was Griselda Corda, the legal guardian of Zenobia herself, as she had a look of concern and worry. Take a rest, Elizabeth. The people will recover. Griselda spoke in a woeful tone, to which Elizabeth responded. I am fine. I can handle this. Not a problem. Elizabeth spoke with a smile, but internally, she thought in annoyance, what I have to say to make sure no one suspects me. On the other hand, Shemisai had a look of helplessness. He saw how badly his faction had been affected to the point of non-existence. He had no choice, even he agreed to Nyx's release. Furthermore, the faction soldiers were all damaged, both mentally and physically. They were afraid that they will be next soon, and they were demoralized beyond belief. Their only option was Issei's request to be accepted. Scene change. A2 Residence, 2 p.m. Issei was working on recreating the sacred gears based on holy artifacts. He had the information based on the true Longinus. However, it was much difficult to write since this was something that it was hard to do so. This thing must have been the most complicated gear God made. After all, it is said that his will is present in it. The first thing I need to do is removed, Issei spoke while putting his focus. He needed to put the correct concept into the book, otherwise, it might backfire. It was finally done. After 50 tries, he finally managed to recreate the true Longinus. The truth idea was the part that was giving him the most troubles. He did put it on hold multiple times in order to focus on other gears. Yes. I did it. I have finally done it. Now nobody can stop me. Issei spoke with happiness. He finally succeeded in recreating the true Longinus without any limitations. It was now on par with the mortis blade. He closed his book and put the true Longinus in his book. As he closed the book, he decided to have 2 cans of Diet Coke to celebrate his success. He was happy that after a long time, he was able to recreate the true Longinus. Issei turned around and his happy mood changed into that of a sad mood. It was Invol. She had worn her Core Academy clothing, which did surprise her for a while. She usually wore clothes that Dee had chosen for her, at the very least whenever he saw her, that is, and the last time they interacted was when he lashed out at her. However, it will only lasted for a second. What do you want, Leviathan? Isai spoke with an annoyed tone. His mood was ruined clearly by what had happened. See, can I talk to you? Invol spoke with worry in his voice. Isai rubbed the bridge of his nose as he spoke. Make it quick, I have work to do. Isai commanded Invol, who gulped as she spoke nervously. If I ask you to stop your actions, will you do it? Invol looked at Isai, who looked at her dumbfoundedly, to which Isai only started to chuckle, which made her nervous. You really think I will stop everything? Isai spoke, coming close to Invol, who fell back? It was just like the last conversation that she had with him. Isai spoke with his tone increasing at every step. They took my life. My own parents chose my pathetic siblings over me just because they were younger, were good-looking, well-behaved, and got good grades, as he spoke, pointing his finger to the side. Invol gulped. She had an idea on how that conversation will go. As Essie continued, all my life, I have remained in my sibling's shadow, the disgraceful child, the black sheep of the hairdo family. Every single day, no matter where I went, I was always looked down upon, always humiliated, always scorned, and always hated, whether it was the supernatural world or the real world. And you have the guts to ask me to stop? Never. It took me a lot of time to get the factions to their knees, and I won't stop till they are wiped out completely. Isai screamed the last part, making Invol fall. His aura was radiating all over the area. If the others were here, they would have been fearful. However, Englewood was not going to back down. She was going to say what she wanted to say. She has always been sidelined, viewed as an object. She was not going to let this happen. She will be heard. And what? After that, what will you do? You wiped out everyone, fine. I am not going to stop you, not that I can stop you even if I wanted you. You will just find a way to disable my gear. Engel trailed off. She looked at his aide dead in the eye. But know this, you will not look down upon me. I am sick and tired of being treated as an object, first from Dai, and even by you, Isai. You may hate me, you may even detest me, but you will not disrespect me. Let me make this clear. Isai was taken aback, not because Invol spoke to her that way, but the words that she had spoke. It was clear that she has some spine or some self-respect. Issei couldn't help but grin, which made Invol shiver, but she stood aground. Her fear was something Issei could sense, but she has grown a spine now. Yet there were a few things that had made him annoyed, which caused him to change his expression as he asked, "When did I treat you as an object?" Issei asked with a serious tone, which caused Invol some surprise as she answered, "You talk to me so harshly, even now, you think of me as an object," and Invol tried to retort, to which Issei interrupted her in a cold and stern tone, "I never treated you as an object. Invol, keep that in mind. It was Dee that treated you as such. He always wanted whatever I had. He was entitled to the core right from day one." Isai's words made sense to Invol. "There was a time I would have given my everything for you. I loved you more than anyone else, but you chose someone who would have treated you as object and wouldn't even give 2 cents if you died. Trust me, I know him very well. What I am telling you back then and even now is what I feel for you now, just nothing but hatred. And unlike I am not even hiding it. I just think of you as what you thought of me, nothing but absolute trash," Issei declared in a cold and stern manner, making Invol lose whatever confidence she had, and she was about to fall on her knees and cry, but she handled herself. She remained confident. It seemed like there was a difference between the old Engel that he had encountered a few days ago when he had given his peace of mind to her. She refused to fall to her weakness. And again, I am honestly surprised, not going to lie, you finally grew your spine. At the very least you defend yourself rather than defending my sorry excuse of a brother. That's good, I guess. Issei walked away. In his eyes, Invol was at least a little less worse in his eyes now. But the factions will fall, and there is nothing you can do about it, and you know what will happen if you open your mouth right. So stay quiet and watch. I will fulfill my promise during our last conversation. Isai spoke with a mocking grin as he walked away, leaving Invol alone, who fell to her knees and cried for a while. She was terrified on what Isai would do to her. It was a miracle that she was even alive. Scene change. Underworld, 2:30 p.m. The leaders had gathered to discuss on what needs to be done. The ones that were present were Sergix Lucifer, Seraphol, Leviathan, Falbium Asmodeus, and Ajuka Beelzebub from the devils, Michael from the angels, Shemzai from the fallen angels, Odin from the Norse faction, Zeus along with Artemis and Athena from Greek faction, Isaka from the Yao Kai, and finally, Almenheld Karnstein from the vampires. The DXD group were not informed of this yet due to problems not occurring between them. I didn't want to come to this, but it seems like we have to give in to his demand. Zeus spoke with a regretful tone as many of the leaders agreed to him. We are aware, but are you just going to let her go like that? Yusaku asked incredulously as the others were awaiting Zeus's answer. I had planned at first upon hearing this. Many wanted to protest. However, this is why Athena and Artemis are accompanying to keep an eye on her, as she was going to do something. This earned some satisfying answers from many as Seraphol spoke. I believe it would be the best thing to do, but the DXD group will realize that Nyx is there with them. Seraphol's words made many agree to it since the majority of the residents, if not all of them, live there. Although I am not going to let her go, her divinity will be sealed so that she won't cause any problems. This suggestion was agreed to by many of the group. Now all that remains is to locate Hadu. The good things was that he came back a week earlier. Sergius spoke with a smile, yet he was aware what had really happened. His sister had informed him immediately after he had left. He was going to warn the factions that whatever they do, they must be careful in their next move. So he disappears and the fallen and Greek are attacked. Athena thought with suspicion. She had to be careful. Maybe he was not such a good person after all. However, I see some flaws in the plan. Aelmenhold spoke seriously. How are we going to be sure that the Red Dragon won't find out or help her escape? Aelmenhold continued in a serious yet wilful tone. Many agreed to Aelmenhold's words as Ajuka then spoke. I have an idea, but it is risky. Ajuka spoke seriously, to which everyone looked at him, like his brother died. I believe that we should commit several girls to him as well. Ajuka's words made many surprised at his words. That way we can monitor him. But I doubt that they would agree to this. Odin spoke with concern. It also allows us to maintain an alliance with him, along with keeping a track of what he does. Ajuka spoke with a heavy sigh, to which many agreed. However, some were against it, and for what kind of people are they? They are bloody hypocrites for coming up with such things. Artemis thought angrily, as she noticed the inner version also being shocked at this. You see, Artemis, they would even sacrifice you for their dirty goals. However, inner Artemis refused to believe this, believing her father would understand her hatred for men. But that thing has its flaws. Which girls do you plan to commit? Zeus spoke seriously. He then pointed to the different faction leaders as he spoke. We need to have someone that is close to each one. The first being close to the Four Mouths, the second being an angel, the third being a Yao Kai, the fourth being a Valkyrie, and the fifth being a vampire. Inner Artemis was horrified by this. She started to have some sadness for Issei, but she was not going to accept being committed to him. That way we can control him, but it would be safe if there are spies that would be useful to keep an eye on the Red Dragon. Ajuka spoke seriously. Many refused to believe they are hearing this. They thought this was a bad joke, but his serious face made them understand that he is not joking. That's not happening. Seraphil spoke against this. It went against whatever she stood for. I agree. That's a terrible idea, Ajuka. And before you say this, I know what he did. Once he came back, Sergius spoke. As many looked at him, many didn't understand what Sergius spoke. Seeing their confused expressions, Sergius spoke everything what his sister told him. This caused many to be horrified by this as Ajuka clenched his fist in sadness. If Issei even gets an idea of this, he will destroy them. He overtook many of the faction leaders, especially Seraphil, Falbium, Yasaka, Elmenhild and Michael, as Sergius spoke with slight worry. They knew what his say is capable of, and they couldn't risk turning him into their enemy. Sergius spoke seriously. First, we prioritize a good relationship between him. We need his support as an ally, not as a threat. If he even gets an idea of us spying on him, then we can say goodbye to our only hope for beating Malik. Sergius's voice made everyone realize how serious the matter is, as Ajuka and reluctantly Seraphil agreed, seeing that they had no other choice. I accept Mao or Lucifer's plan. It is the best outcome we can come up with due to his violent and ruthless nature to anyone that demands to make him serve. Athena spoke in agreement, since she knew of dragons being the creatures that hate bending the knee to someone else. In there, Artemis was surprised and horrified by her own sister agreeing to this. She was starting to think his name knew something about the Greeks that she was unable to do so after all these years. The draft was then procured, and one by one all leaders signed the document. Even Athena signed it, who was the last to sign it, as she noticed her sister's sadness, who saw her name and her sister's name inside of it. Don't worry, sister, you are not alone in this, Artemis spoke, feigning sadness, but in reality, she was angry. After all, you are no different from these demons, Artemis thought angrily, as inner Artemis was completely shocked by this. It was then concluded that these will be the girls to be engaged to. From the devils, it would be Cytherea Agars and Latia Astaroth. From the angels, it would be Morana Shuratova and Elizabeth Lyons. From the vampires, it would be Valerie Tips of the Tips faction. From the Greek, it would be Artemis, Athena, and finally Nyx. Only the fallen angels, Yox and Nors were missing, but that would be enough for now as it will be discussed later. Now the problem was to convince Issei to sign the treaty. We need to talk to the girls about this. Tomorrow evening would be a big day. It would be the deciding factor whether or not he joins us or not. Sergius has spoke seriously, to which the factions have agreed to it. Once they all start to leave one by one, Athena then spoke with an apologetic tone. I am so sorry for this. Artemis then shook her head and spoke with a smile. We have no choice but to accept, and don't expect me to tolerate men. I don't like being close to them, Artemis spoke. However, she was not referring to his say, but to the men of the group. Athena nodded as she left outside, leaving Artemis alone with her inner counterpart, who was now angry. Who speaks? Can I ask you something? Inner Artemis spoke with gritting her teeth. Oh, what is it? Did your eyes finally open? Artemis spoke mentally to her counterpart, who nodded and asked. Can you arrange me to talk to Lord Issei? It's important, I want to willingly join him. Inner Artemis responded, to which the other grinned in happiness as she spoke. It shall be done. Today itself, Artemis spoke to her inner counterpart, who accepted her proposal. She was done with working for the Greek faction if they were just willing to give her to someone whom she barely knew. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also, check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.